Hey guys, tonight we're not setting sail across pirate-infested waters. No splintery decks, no sunburnt sailors arguing over imaginary treasure, and no parrots screaming financial advice they absolutely don't understand. Nope. Tonight, we're drifting somewhere quieter, colder, and far more confusing. Medieval Europe, at a time when gold simply vanished. But before we tiptoe into locked treasuries, echoing cathedrals, and anxious marketplaces where merchants counted coins one too many times, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy these gentle, strange little bedtime journeys. And leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. Somehow, it's always 2 a.m. somewhere. And honestly, economic collapse feels especially mysterious at 2 a.m. Now dim those lights. Turn on a fan for that soft white noise hum, something like wind slipping through stone corridors. Get comfortable. Settle into your blankets, and maybe tuck your feet in. Not because imaginary rats are plotting anything tonight, but because medieval Europe definitely had real ones, and they were bold. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what happens when an entire civilization slowly runs out of money? Not metaphorically, not, we're a little short this year. I mean literally running out of gold. In medieval Europe, gold wasn't just wealth, it was trust, it was power, it was stability. And then, quietly, mysteriously, it disappeared. Coins became thinner, payments stopped, kings panicked, merchants improvised, and peasants, as usual, were told everything was fine while it absolutely was not. Tonight, with Sleepy Oogway as your guide, we're drifting gently through this forgotten economic mystery. We'll explore how trade routes shifted, how mines dried up, how wars swallowed wealth, and how people tried, sometimes cleverly, sometimes hilariously, to survive without the shiny metal that once held their world together. No shouting, no complicated charts, no modern finance jargon, just quiet stories of monks melting coins, merchants hoarding silver, rulers debasing currency, and everyday people navigating a system that was slowly slipping through their fingers. Imagine candlelit rooms where ledgers were checked again and again, markets where bartering replaced certainty, castles where rulers worried not about dragons, but about payroll. This isn't a story of sudden collapse. It's a story of slow confusion, of quiet adaptation, of humans doing what they always do when systems fail, making do, making mistakes, and somehow making it through. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Let the modern world fade away. Tonight, we follow the missing gold and uncover the sleepy, surprising story of Europe's secret medieval economic crisis. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. The Map Where Gold Grew Silent. The room is quiet, lit only by a few trembling points of candlelight. At the center lies a sprawling map of early medieval Europe, its parchment yellowed, its edges curled by time. Shadows ripple across its surface as the flame flickers, making mountains rise and fall, rivers appear to move, and borders blur like memories struggling to stay sharp. This is not the Europe of marble cities and shining coins. This is what came after. The map reveals a fractured landscape, the long shadow left behind by the collapse of Roman authority. Once, roads stretched like arteries across the continent, carrying gold, grain, soldiers, and certainty. Now those same routes fade into thin, broken lines, many of them leading nowhere. The empire that built and maintained them is gone, and with it, the invisible system that kept wealth flowing. Small glimmers of gold still appear on the map, isolated dots marking former trade hubs, river crossings, and coastal ports. But they are few, scattered, and dim. Wealth no longer circulates freely. It pools, disappears, reappears in unexpected places, then vanishes again. Gold has not ceased to exist. It has simply stopped moving. The candlelight drifts across the former heart of the Roman world. Italy looks quieter now. Cities that once rang with commerce feel muted, almost hollow. Without centralized taxation, without imperial mints producing standardized coins, gold slowly slips out of everyday life. Coins are hoarded, melted down, buried, or lost. Barter replaces currency. Trust replaces law. To the north and west, the map grows darker. Former provinces are now a patchwork of kingdoms: Visigoths, Franks, Lombards, Anglo-Saxons, each ruling locally, each focused on survival rather than trade. Borders are uncertain. Authority changes hands often. Long-distance commerce becomes dangerous, unpredictable, and rarely worth the risk. Trade routes once connected to the Mediterranean world now thin into faint traces. The great Roman highways crumble into dirt paths. Bridges collapse. Ports silt up. Merchants no longer travel with confidence. Without safety, without demand, gold remains locked away, inert and silent. The candlelight slides eastward, lingering briefly over Byzantium, a faint but steady glow. Here, the old systems endure longer. Gold still flows, coins still gleam, trade still breathes. But the light does not travel far inland. Western Europe remains mostly cut off, its economy shrinking into local loops of obligation and survival. On the map, rivers matter more than roads now. Small settlements cling to waterways, using them as the last reliable veins of commerce. But even these routes are fragile, dependent on seasons, weather, and peace between rival groups. One failed harvest, one conflict, one closed passage, and trade simply stops. Gold becomes something different in this world. Not money, but memory. Not currency, but power. Not circulation, but possession. Kings measure wealth, not in coins exchanged, but in objects held. Jewelry, relics, weapon fittings, gifts meant to bind loyalty rather than facilitate trade. Gold retreats from the marketplace and enters the treasury, the church, the grave. The map seems almost to sigh under the candlelight, its silence telling a story of contraction rather than collapse. Europe does not fall apart. It slows down. Economies turn inward. Ambition shrinks. Distance becomes dangerous again. And so, gold vanishes. Not through disaster, but through neglect, through fragmentation, through the quiet erosion of systems once taken for granted. As the flame flickers lower, the map grows dimmer. Forgotten trade routes fade further into shadow. But somewhere beyond the darkness, change waits patiently. New paths will form. New networks will emerge. Gold will move again. Just not yet. For now, Europe sleeps, fractured, poorer, quieter, beneath the long, uncertain night of the early medieval world. Chapter 2. The Gleaming Silver Compromise. Let's take a moment to picture something sparkling. I mean really, really shiny. Imagine a lovely, pure silver coin, polished to a dazzling brilliance, so bright it could blind a bard in a storytelling contest. This stunning piece of currency sits nestled on a sumptuous velvet cushion in the royal treasury, soaking up the dreams of financial prosperity like a sponge at a fairy tale cocktail party. Now, this glorious coin represents something far deeper than mere monetary value. It symbolizes the feverish desire of lords and traders alike to escape the chaos of their economically challenging times during the early Middle Ages. You may be thinking, wow, what must it feel like to be a sensationally stable silver coin? Well, allow me to answer. A bit like being the star quarterback in a medieval football game without the risk of being tackled by your overzealous serf friends. You see, by 650 AD, having a shiny treasure like this coin was about as desirable as gaining a Netflix subscription during a pandemic. It was desirable, yes, but mostly everyone was just trying to figure out how to make it while finding enough food to survive the raging beast known as inflation. You may think it's all goblets and gowns in a medieval treasury, but in fact, it was more like a bizarre episode of a cooking show gone wrong. Just picture it. Chefs are racing around trying to whip up a feast with a collection of ingredients that have gone stale, while the judges stare down at them with skepticism and mild disappointment. As we leaf through this slice of life, we notice that silver coins weren't merely pretty medals. They were somewhat like that friend who always promises to chip in for pizza, but never does. Their presence was supposed to provide reassurance, no matter how many broken clay pots suggested otherwise. Picture merchants clasping these coins with the same reverence you'd display while holding your newborn, except in this case it is a cold piece of metal you'd truly hope wouldn't end up lodged in a cow's nose during a game of toss. Now, when you strolled through a bustling medieval marketplace, the atmosphere wasn't merely woven with the sounds of bartering. It smelled of aged cheese, questionable sausages, and, let's be honest, your existential dread about whether you were going to eat today. Merchants waving around their shiny silver coins were attempting to prove their wealth, while simultaneously trying to avoid accidentally stepping on a chicken that clearly had aspirations of becoming the next fried delicacy. Once in a while, you'd hear the clinking of coins at a distance, a sound only rivaled by the frantic flailing of a vendor who just tripped over his own feet while boasting about his never before seen world-class turnips. This is where you hoped your newfound stash of silver would reveal its hidden talents. After all, trying to barter with wilted produce was akin to trading your luxury car for a loaf of bread. It just didn't quite add up. Speaking of bartering, let's talk about some of those trades. 30 loaves of bread for a particularly extra-large wheel of cheese. You'd think you were trying to pass off a vintage cheese that had seen better days. Or how about the time someone tried to exchange an impressive pile of the freshest turnips, which looked slightly less than fresh, for a bag of your second-best playing cards? It's like the everyday chaos of a flea market, only there were fewer health inspections and far more rot. Now, let's discuss the unspoken agreement of the villagers, the importance of that silver coin. It was the beacon of hope they clung to, like a baby in a crowded nursery. When a merchant successfully made a sale, and pockets jangled with freshly minted coins, people practically cheered as if they'd just witnessed a dragon's triumphant landing. But alas, it was all a bit illusory. Consider the time when Lord Wigglebottom ordered a shiny new shipment of silver coins for his castle, believing it to be his ticket to financial independence. Expectation was so high that delegates flocked to the castle like moths to a slightly more competent flame. But what arrived instead were coins that looked refined enough for a formal dinner, but were about as valuable as an undercooked soufflé. The villagers echoed thoughts of anguish as Lord Wigglebottom stood there, holding his shining disappointment, realizing that beauty didn't always equate to prosperity. If only he'd thrown his hopes at a decent bakery instead. Now, picture cozying up to your dreams of fantastic dragons and majestic castles, with these bizarre characters undertaking their schemes and trades. The allure of a gleaming silver coin may have deceived many, but isn't that what dreams are made of? And as you drift off into a peaceful slumber, remember, even the finest coins can't save you from spending your last sixpence on a surprise ratatouille attempt. Sleep well, my medieval investors, for tomorrow awaits with all its shiny temptations. Chapter 3. The Great Grain Exchange, Barter Wars, and Tool Trades. Imagine, if you will, a bustling little village in 650 A.D. The sun peeks over the horizon, casting a gentle glow that shorts out the dreams of sleeping peasants like a lazy rooster. You've just woken up in a world where gold is as elusive as a respectable Wi-Fi connection. That's right. The currency of the folks here is straightforward. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, and potentially whack each other with the odd pitchfork during negotiations. In this ginormous barter party, nothing shouts value louder than a basket of grain. So let's set the scene. You walk into a marketplace where every corner smells of fresh earth, hay, and an odor you're unsure whether to classify as agricultural scents or medieval barbershop. Nearby, an astonishingly rugged fellow, let's call him Grim the Grain Merchant, stands there, hands as worn and calloused as your morning coffee cup on a bad day. He's exchanging a basket of grain for a rusty tool that seems to have seen better days,
possibly in a time when treadmills were only used for running from bears rather than those ironic gym memberships. You slip into the crowd, watching as the villagers negotiate like they're training for the world's worst episode of The Price is Right. "I'll give you 2 rabbits for 1 shovel," they shout, as if the value of a rusty shovel is somehow equal to the number of fluffy bunnies it could dig up. And there's the problem, isn't it? You can't exactly pull out a credit card or Venmo someone for bread. No, that's a luxury reserved for the nobles. Instead, you engage in the clumsy ballet of barter, which is less about finesse and more about convincing your neighbor that they really need all these half-gnawed carrots you're offering. Think about it. Would you trust a guy who hands you a plank of wood for a couple of your best turnips? Especially when you vividly remember last spring when he tried to convince you that scrap metal was the new gold. You've got to be sharp. This isn't just trading. This is the very essence of a medieval reality show with a lot at stake, including your dignity. You might even get a round of applause from the village if you make a particularly savvy trade. Or a swift kick from Grimm if you try to undercut him. 2 pints of ale for a milking cow? Is that really the best you can do? Good luck with that bartering score. The whole system is oddly reminiscent of trying to negotiate through life's endless peculiarities, like asking a coworker to swap their perfectly ripe avocado for your dodgy, slightly cooked meatloaf. You know it won't happen, but it's the thought that counts, right? Every exchange feels both monumental and absurd, like titling a cat as chairman of the board, just because it sat on the stack of papers you've been ignoring. As you stroll through the village, let's not forget the
Sounds. The clatter of wooden carts fills the air, and people haggling at the market sound a bit like the world's worst jazz ensemble. Such smooth jazz, you could almost argue, might summon the spirits of medieval ancestors who would undoubtedly shake their heads in disbelief while still managing to give unsolicited advice about the right way to grow vegetables. It's like being part of a strange sitcom where everyone is more concerned about which carrot is shinier than getting a proper banking system set up. And speaking of barter, let's talk about tools. You see, in this world, everyone has a tool of some sort, even if it looks like it's been through a miniature battle of its own. Want a plow? Sure, just trade me 3 bushels of barley. How about a brand new sickle? Only if you give me a goat. And your firstborn. Not your actual firstborn, just a casual threat to gauge sincerity. It's like trading Pokemon cards, but no one is really sure what value they hold or who's sweating more by the end of the exchange. Trading tools is particularly funny because it's a bit like swapping exercise equipment. Oh, you want my slightly rusted hoe? Well, what do I get in return? Your left shoe and a promise to never stand near me when I'm trying to lift this overgrown rock. Grimm the grain merchant is swindling everyone and collecting tools like they're rare action figures. This entire market is living proof that as long as you have something that looks remotely useful, you can swing a deal that might last until the next harvest. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows of haggling villagers, you can't help but think how ridiculous it all is. Swapping grain for a tool you can hardly repair? It's a dance of wits, and it looks an awful lot like a game of musical chairs, except with axes. The kind of party where you might want to keep your knees bent and your senses sharp, lest you find yourself with a load of refuse no one wants. But hey, such is life. Here in this barter-based paradise, every transaction is part comedy, part chaos, and guess what? It all works out, like a mirror image of modern-day shop classes married to your grandmother's yard sale. Everything is one more round of haggling, from either a fabulous steal or an epic fail. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. When things go awry, it makes for the best stories, if nothing else. So as you digest the absurdity of tool exchanges and grain negotiations, remember, this is just another day in the life of a medieval peasant, where humor thrives and every day feels like living in a sitcom burrowed in history. Now, as the sky darkens, prepare for the next adventure and ask yourself, would you really trade your buttery croissant for a bag of hay? Probably not. But in this era, you never know. Chapter 4: The Silver Coin Chronicles, a monarch's quest for control. Hey guys, welcome back to another night of absurdly historical hilarity. Tonight, we plunge into the heart of the early Middle Ages, an era so charmingly chaotic that even your most tangled set of phone charger wires might start to feel like a neatly organized closet. You'll find yourself in a grand world where gold is playing hide and seek and silver coins hold the key to a kingdom's ambition, much like your desire for that last slice of pizza at a party. So before we embark on this adventure, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Only if you enjoy the ride, though. Don't worry, your secret is safe with us, just like a noble's stash of silver coins hidden beneath an overly ornate floor mat. Now, go ahead and dim the lights, switch on a gentle fan, and get cozy in your blankets. Imagine you're seated in a lavish hall where the walls are adorned with silver and gold trinkets. Well, at least in your dreams, because the reality is a touch less shiny. Ever wondered if that regal monarch seated on a throne gets more than 3 minutes of privacy before hearing a peasant complain about the state of their turnips? Or how often they think about upgrading their crown to something cooler, like a foam finger that says, #1 ruler. Perhaps it would really take their kingdom to a new level of prosperity. After all, who wouldn't want a crown that promotes friendliness and support instead of just, I'm better than you? Congratulations! You've just woken up in 650 AD, face to face with a monarch who is about as regal as a cat in a bathtub, grappling with the concept of economic control, like trying to herd a snail stampede. You blink into the flickering candlelight and notice our determined monarch, clad in a tunic that is slightly out of fashion. They sit on a simple throne that looks surprisingly uncomfortable, like an over-enthusiastic IKEA project gone wrong. "Behold!" they shout, raising a single, newly minted silver coin. This coin is like the monarch's gold star sticker, meticulously placed over their visit to the dentist. Except this time, it means centralization and the ambition for power rather than just a clean bill of oral health. They clutch it tightly, almost like it's the last cookie in a jar that several nobles are desperately trying to snatch. Their plan? To standardize transactions across the kingdom. Just picture that. Knights negotiating with peasants, each wielding silver coins instead of javelins. Much less brutal, yet even more confusing. And here comes the fun part. Imagine the sound of that coin clinking against the ornate throne as the monarch gestures passionately about centralized economies, their glorious dreams echoing through the hall like a cat trying to sing opera. With every enthusiastic proclamation, their subjects shift uncomfortably, half expecting an imminent dart to the throat from the next errant idea the monarch has.
Imagine a world, they proclaim, where castles aren't left with a spare rug to barter for a basket of grain.
This morning, indeed, humor and absurdity prevail. Peasants look on, daring to think the impossible. Maybe they could take their stashed silver coins, not to buy sandals flavored with sage or barrels of questionable ale, but perhaps a shovel that actually digs. What a revolutionary idea! Every time the monarch speaks passionately about coins, a small group of guards fidgets nervously. What if someone actually dares to sit on a throne and consider trading their shiny springs for this precious metal? It's a conundrum of hilariously epic proportions, one that might rival a soap opera, but with slightly fewer romantic subplots and a fair amount of peasant grumbling. "Hey, buddy, that coin better be worth my goat," they mutter to one another, planning future negotiations, because nothing screams economic destiny like a village brimming with sheep-related tension. Now, let's paint a picture of the haggling that ensues when silver coins enter the mix. Imagine bundled peasants elbowing each other in the livestock market. "I'll give you 3 silver coins and a pair of shoes for that goat." "Sorry, mate, I'm holding out for 5 pairs of shoes. How do you expect me to run a goat farm on shoes that have sawdust for cushioning?" Peasants will jump at any chance to make a bargain, and they're equal parts strategists and jesters, haggling over shovels like it's an episode of The Real Housewives of Peasants. "Oh, darling, I have more silver coins than cents. Don't you dare approach my goat with less than 4. She's a real treasure." The fervor is akin to a weekend yard sale, where the stakes are, let's face it, just as high, but with slightly less $100 bills in the background. Now you can feel the tension rising in the air, carried by the sound of silver clinking against rough hands. It almost sounds like the morose soundtrack of regret as trades go awry and goats become pawns in a medieval chess game where strategy is crucial, but the outcome is horrifyingly predictable. Well, now I can't trade this goat for a decent set of socks. Great. What do I do with a goat wearing my shoe size? Ultimately, the scene depicts a whimsical chaos where everyone's grasping at dreams, coins, and the illusion of control. Life in this quirky medieval ambiance is not just about survival, but rather a laughably epic juggle of hopes, bargains, and a few skirmishes over who's the best scrapper in the shallow end of society. So, as the echoes of the vibrant marketplace linger, let's ease into the next chapter of this unpredictable adventure and wonder how the fickle fortunes might be spinning in the halls of our misguided monarch's ambitions. Who knows? Perhaps there's another round of unfortunate yet hilarious trades on the horizon. Chapter 5. The Market Square of Coined Dreams and Goat Shenanigans. Let's meander into the grand tapestry of medieval life. A bustling village market square filled with excitement and a smattering of dubious life choices. Imagine stepping into a scene that feels like your average Sunday flea market, except the products are 10 times more questionable, and instead of vintage, it's all village relic, come see what I found in my mother's attic. As you stroll through the square, you're greeted with a cacophony of sounds. Vendors barking prices louder than a rooster at dawn. Children weaving through the crowd like over-caffeinated squirrels. And the faintest whiff of questionable fish mingling with the aromas of freshly baked, well, let's be honest, probably stale, bread. Picture it. A colorful medley of stalls, each more extravagant than the last, hawking everything from handmade pottery, one of which may or may not contain an unsightly crack, to garments made from sheep wool that have seen more than their fair share of mud and goat hair. Now, let's be clear. Coinage in this vibrant hive of commerce is more precious than ever. In a period where shiny discs of silver seem to be the reigning royalty, the tension hangs like that one uncomfortable pause you experience when you realize you forgot someone's name at a party. Above all, the few existing coins are treated with a sense of reverence, usually reserved for one's only pair of good shoes. Vendors cling to their handful of coins like their life vests in a turbulent sea, meticulously counting and recounting, whispering secrets about their value as if they might sprout legs and disappear. "Is that a real coin?" a vendor whispers, eyes darting suspiciously to a potential buyer who looks just slightly less trustworthy than a stray goat eyeing your lunch. The atmosphere is electric, but only the way that a mildly aggressive house cat might hum with energy right before deciding to leap into your lap with all the grace of a drunken knight. You can almost hear the thoughts of the burly vendor with the greased mustache echoing in your ears. "A coin for a loaf? What are you trying to pull, buddy? My goods are the creme de la creme of turnips. They went from field to stall and are now here in all their glory." Now, let's have a peek at the haggling madness, where the art of negotiation isn't just a skill, it's a lifestyle. Picture this: vendors shouting over each other, scrambling to keep their told secrets close. Peasants jockey for position, bargaining like they're in a high-stakes poker game at the local tavern. "I'll give you 4 silver coins and a promise not to dress my goat in ridiculous costumes if you throw in 2 of those charmingly bumpy potatoes," one poor soul proclaims, inadvertently escalating prices faster than inflation. Oh yes, you've reached the pivotal moment where trading isn't just about goods or coins. It's a strategic dance of wits akin to a medieval chess match. Wouldn't it be glorious if the peasants could answer your modern woes with but a single piece of silver? Imagine they'd chirp, "Oh, you want that avocado toast? 2 silver coins, but only if you don't say organic," while eyeing your half-eaten lunch suspiciously. Amongst the chaos, there's a certain beauty in absurdity. Picture a ravenous crowd, dogs loitering for scraps, children trying to pocket shiny things that probably belong to someone else, and chickens just generally making poor life choices like pecking at stray coins. Everyone is grimly determined, as though the fate of their breakfast depends on the outcome of their bartering skills, because, in a way, it does. And let's not overlook the unsung heroes of the market, the goat herds. These sturdy souls are hauling their livestock around, constructing deals that involve a goat as collateral. The stakes are high. I'll trade you one foggy pair of socks for that goat. She looks like she's been through very little but a lot, a peasant exclaims. Last I saw, she was eyeballing my last crumb of bread. Fine, she's yours. Can you even imagine what a goat exchange could look like? It's basically like Tinder, but with livestock. Swipe left. That goat looks too sly. Oh, now this one is all charm but no brains. Just my luck. Shouldn't dating apps offer livestock swaps? Seems like the medieval strategy is a few steps ahead, merging emotions and economics quite seamlessly. But behind all these ambitions of a better barter system, there lurks a funny little secret. The reason these coins are handled so carefully? Let's just say that in the reclusive halls of nobility, it's a well-known fact. A single misguided transaction could lead to some very unflattering titles, particularly ones like Lord of the Unfashionable Goat or Dame from the Dreadfully Bad Deal. No one wants that hanging over their heads. As you observe this frenzied marketplace, a realization hits you. While there's chaos, sweat, and a hint of grease in the air, people are trying to elevate their lives. A king might sit atop his vast wealth, but down here in the dirt and shambles of the village, hopes are woven into haggles, and laughter cut through the stress. So, as you take a moment to absorb the wondrous eccentricities of this medieval marketplace, understand this. In a world where goats are traded for socks, and any experience feels like an episode of a reality show gone wrong, the joys of life flourish amidst the absurdity. The scene may hold flashes of chaos, but ultimately, the resilience of hopeful hearts tells a much more profound story. And now, let us sneak beneath the velvet curtain of destiny, O trader of ancient coins, and uncork another adventure brimming with historical hilarity. Chapter 6. The Silver Shadows of Abandonment. Let's take a stroll down a less than stellar back alley of history, shall we? Imagine the shimmering glory of Roman times when silver flowed more freely than questionable puns at a medieval tavern. Flash forward to our present moment, 650 A.D., and here we are, at a desolate silver mine that has seen better days. Now all that remains is the backdrop for a ritualistic game of what on earth happened here? Spoiler alert, it's not a heartwarming tale of resilience and community spirit. As you arrive, the air carries a damp, earthy scent that mingles awkwardly with the haunting whispers of forgotten miners. Thick, twisted vines of ivy snicker sardonically as they cling stubbornly to what was once a vibrant hub of industry. The mine's mouth yawns open, a mouth long deprived of laughter and silver baubles. It appears to have taken up the fine art of hibernation, with moss swaddled around its crater like a cozy green blanket. You might even feel a chill that plays a haunting symphony of forgotten dreams, like the mine itself is wistfully sighing, "Ah, the days when we could have used a good dental plan, or simply been more responsibly mined. Picture the entrance of this mine, an explosion of overgrowth that looks like a wannabe nature documentary about plants moving into a former precious metal metropolis. And here you are, standing before this glorious backdrop, a place where silver once sparkled with the enthusiasm of a puppy seeing its chew toy for the first time. Now? Well, the only glory is more moss than metal, reminding you of that unfortunate pair of pants you keep intending to throw away because of how badly they've aged. Once upon a time, miners hustled in and out of this dark abyss, but fast forward to the present moment, and those miners would be met with an ear-splitting silence that echoes louder than the distant chime of a church bell at noon. Oh, how history loves its cruel ironies. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal has now been replaced with the gentle rustle of leaves, whispering secrets about how perhaps the concept of moderation could have saved everyone a lifetime of digging. Ever wondered what a typical day in the mine would look like? Picture this. Miners squabble over their meager pickaxes and joke about who has the worst case of backache, while an unfortunate soul who forgot to wear proper footgear wails in agony, feet forever immortalized as the true casualties of mining woes. These hardy fellows would drill into the earth, spitting dust and sweat, while sharing glories of days past over bowls of something resembling gruel. Think of gruel as the medieval equivalent of instant oatmeal, but somehow stale even before you add water. And what is this madness of escapades deep underground? It's as claustrophobic as trying to squeeze into tights after holiday feasting. But let's not forget the excitement of dragging silver out of the walls as if pulling rabbits out of hats. Spoiler alert, it's 80% mud and 20% whimsy. Can we talk about the irony of mining silver during an economic crisis? It's like trying to sell snow shovels in summer. Everyone's bewildered, and your only potential customers are ice sculptures. As you stand in that abandoned mine, it becomes clear. The mining industry wasn't just a job. It was practically a medieval game show where contestants literally risked life and limb for chests of shiny metal, all the while keeping an eye on who might accidentally sell them a cursed brooch on the side. Hey, does this silver look a little less shiny than you'd expect? You get 2 for the price of 1 if you take my charmingly defective rapier too. Yet here lies the magic, or lack thereof, of this silver-laden tale. The numismatic dream withered away faster than livestock prices during a feast day, leaving only echoes of hopes dashed against a backdrop of ashen earth. The story of the mine's demise mirrors the rise and fall of other fads. Ever tried wearing bell-bottoms while riding a bicycle? Go ahead, ask anyone, and they'll nod knowingly. There's a reason those fashions didn't last. The market's reliance on silver tokens crumbled as if they were made of biscuit dough, an unfortunate reminder that wealth could be more cyclical than the latest village gossip. Men went from glimmering dreams to grim reapers of their own financial misfortunes. Their former ambitions of striking it rich swiftly became echoes lost in time, as if they were narrative ghost tales that rambled on at the local tavern long after anyone cared to listen. Sitting there amidst the silent ruins, you can almost hear a minor lament. Ah, we dreamed of riches. All we got were this damp and forever-altering backache. The moss, no longer a mere decoration, seems to nod in passive agreement, a silent witness to the folly of man's ambitions. There's a touch of comedy, after all, found in this very tragedy of centuries gone by. People wanting fortunes, while nature rolled its eyes like a bored teenager at a family function. Let this abandoned silver mine serve as a reminder, dear traveler, that sometimes the brightest dreams fade into shadows just as easily as a good punchline falls flat. Now, as you breathe in the weight of history, you, my friend, may have just inadvertently stumbled upon the lesson of what not to do when panning for fortune. And who knows, maybe you'll take it to heart, or, at the very least, chuckle a little before settling in for the night. Chapter 7. The Glimmer of Gold Amidst Silvery Shadows. Ah, gold, the ultimate shiny thing that's been the object of desire throughout history. So, let's pivot dramatically from those soggy silver mines to something more lustrous, shall we? Imagine, if you will, the Byzantine gold solidus, a coin as radiant as a summer sunrise, and more deliciously weighty than your uncle's fruitcake after the holidays. Picture that solidus gleaming in your palm, radiating with such fervor that it practically begs you to take it out for a fancy dinner. In contrast, you've got the Western Kingdom's local silver coinage. Let's just say they don't exactly turn heads. They look about as appealing as last week's leftovers, molded into sad little pancake shapes. No offense to silver, but in this scenario, gold is the prom queen, and silver is desperately looking for a date, hoping the DJ doesn't play that one song everyone hates. Let's dive deeper into this feast of visual splendor. The solidus is stamped with the image of a serious-looking emperor, striking a pose that screams, "I may or may not have been responsible for a few wars, but do check out this incredible minting detail. The artistry. You could trace your finger along the contours of that gold, feeling as if you were petting a golden retriever instead of a coin. Meanwhile, the local silver coins look like they were produced by a clumsy toddler wielding a hammer. Seriously, if you squinted, could you even tell they weren't just some old tin foil crumpled up and tossed into your last microwave meal? Ah, but let's not forget the dazzling allure of gold. With its ability to make you feel as rich as a modern influencer posing in front of a designer store, the Byzantine gold solidus almost feels regal in its shininess. You could hold it against your cheek and whisper sweet nothings like, "I'm going to be the centerpiece of your treasure chest." That's gold for you. But the silver coins from the Western Kingdoms? Those need a serious pep talk. They resemble the sad leftovers of a once glorious dinner party, long past their prime and thoroughly uninvited to any further festivities. Now imagine strolling through a bustling marketplace in Constantinople. You'd see merchants flaunting their gold solidi like they were about to win the lottery, while the less fortunate, with pockets jangling with those unfortunate silver coins, shuffle along, desperately trying not to make eye contact with anyone who might spot their financial fate. It's like watching a group of people arrive at a buffet, those with gold happily balancing loaded plates of lavish delicacies, while those left with silver are contemplating whether or not they should sneak a forkful of stale bread. Let's take a moment to bask in the aroma of this medieval market. The air is thick with the scent of spices you can't pronounce, mingling humorously with the unmistakable tang of fish that's been sitting out all day. Have you ever experienced that delightful sensation of tasting something that your taste buds quite possibly have never forgiven you for? Well, the poor souls with the silver coins are the ones nervously eyeing that fish stall, hoping the vendor won't ask them too many questions. You find yourself wondering what it must have been like to possess the golden kind of wealth. Did they feel like royalty each time they bought a loaf of bread? Did they make extravagant hand gestures while haggling over prices? Or did they simply strut around in a gilded cloak, knowing that the world would do backflips just to please them? Meanwhile, the poor soul at the back of the line with the silver coin is quickly figuring out that haggling without sufficient funds is akin to trying to pet a lion and hoping it will give you cuddles. But alas, this love affair with gold didn't just inspire envy, it also sparked a certain kind of chaos. Imagine a realm where everyone was so obsessed with that shining metal that cities unintentionally turned into local game shows, with the grand prize being more coins. The pressure to amass gold and flaunt it grew so intense that you'd think there was a medieval version of Instagram influencers coaxing the locals into making a lifestyle change. No, don't buy that quarter-pound of grain. Invest in glimmer instead. Hashtag gold is life. Ah, the economics of dreams. The silver coins were valiant, but simply didn't have the pizzazz of their golden cousins. People were like moths drawn to the mesmerizing glow of the solidus, forgetting that silver, with its tarnishing charm, was still good for a pint of ale or a couple of turnips. "What's the cost?" they would ask at taverns, while the wealthy, morning after a lavish ball, would sing of their golden triumphs. The rest of the folk would drown their sorrows in a mug of ale while lamenting their silver coins, speaking in solemn whispers of missed chances. And thus, dear dreamer, we find ourselves rolling through the captivating age when riches were measured not just in weight, but also in sparks of envy and dreams shattered against the backdrop of a glimmering economy. The scene shifts, the laughter echoes, but one thing remains. Amid the struggles, where would we be without the absurdity of human ambition? Just a bunch of silver coins, wishing they could shine brighter, perhaps. So let your mind rest with a chuckle at the audacity of it all, the glitter of gold, the plaintive appeal of silver, and the dreams that danced between the two, just like misplaced expectations at a family reunion. Ah, what a time it was,
Chapter 8. The Longships and Their Slightly Fearsome Cargo. Hey guys, get ready for a grand journey that's as muddy as your old gym shoes after a rainy day. Tonight, we land on the shores of early medieval Europe, where Viking longships are about as likely to greet you as your neighbor's dog with a penchant for barking at nothing. Spoiler alert, if you have claustrophobia,
this might not be the trip for you. As we go through this wild adventure, remember to like, subscribe, and, if you're feeling extra generous, comment. Only if you genuinely enjoy this, of course. We wouldn't want to pressure you, like that time your Aunt Mabel insisted you taste her unique tuna casserole. So, dim the lights, turn on a fan to create that perfect breeze of cozy, and get comfortable. Ever wondered what it's like to awaken on a stormy shore, surrounded by wet, muddy chaos? Or how about trying to find a way to negotiate with a band of unruly Norse raiders, who might consider anything less than a mountain of silver an absolute insult to their boldness? Imagine them strutting around with their horned helmets, scaring off community goats, while demanding shiny things like they were toddlers in a toy store. Because honestly, we're about to witness a tale that sounds awfully familiar. Just swap gold for Wi-Fi passwords in our own chaotic world. And without further ado, congratulations. You've just woken up on a soggy European shore in 650 AD, where the longships have just made their infamous arrival. How delightful, or terrifying, depending on how fond you are of your possessions. As you blink the sleep out of your eyes, the first thing you notice are the ominous silhouettes of longships creeping along the horizon, cutting through the mist like a bad haircut through trendy scarves. These vessels, made from the finest wood sourced from who knows where, are designed not just for transportation, but possibly to intimidate the very soil they tread upon, like toddlers wielding oversized foam swords. The rhythmic sound of waves slapping against the hull breaks the early morning silence, and you can almost hear those oars churning like an angry kettle ready to whistle up some chaos. Each ship carries not just brave or borderline unhinged Norsemen, but also the promise of trouble, adventure, and most importantly, very poor choices for the unsuspecting inhabitants of this nondescript monastic settlement. As the ships pull ashore with all the grace of a distressed walrus, their occupants spring forth, scantily clad due to questionable fashion sense, and wielding weapons that look like they had more bar fights than they did actual battles. You can almost hear them yelling, "Ahoy, shore folks! We come for your silver!" Because nothing says hospitality like "prepare to be robbed." You begin to witness the scene unfold. Monks, robed in their best, slightly dirty robes, dashing about in a frenzy that would make you think they were auditioning for an Olympic sprint. They're grabbing anything that glints or rustles in the breeze. A tin cup here, a silver spoon there, defending their little slice of heaven as if it were the last donut at a very serious office meeting. And speaking of that silver, let's take a moment to admire the running commentary happening in your mind. Imagine the conversation the monks are having, panting between prayers of desperation. Dear God, if we hide one spoon in the breadbasket, maybe they'll just take the loaf instead. As the Norsemen clumsily navigate the muddy shore, they're yelling orders to one another, sounds echoing like a poor karaoke night gone wrong. It's a cacophony of commands mixed with laughter, probably at the expense of their own poor choices. Those Vikings might appear fearsome, but they're likely just as confused as a cat at bath time. Where did we park the ship again? As the raiders snatch up the silver hoards, there's an absurd comedic twist. They grab anything that shimmers in their line of sight,
like children in a toy store. You could practically hear one Viking exclaim, "I don't know what this is, but it's shiny and I want it." I mean, who hasn't felt that way at a flea market? The raiders, with their glee like kids on Christmas morning, haul mounds of silver, lumps of coins clinking like a very inconvenient character-building exercise in patience. Meanwhile, those frightened monks are having an emotional breakdown as they desperately try to calculate how many bread loaves they'd have to bake to replace all that shiny gone missing. A staggering total they could only describe with, well, more than 4. And in classic medieval fashion, amid the chaos, nobody stops to ask if the raiders are actually hungry. They just scatter like pigeons startled by an unexpected sneeze. Imagine these mischief makers realizing that their haul will just end up in some Viking's treasure chest, next to pet rocks and questionable fashion advice. Who knew such glory would culminate in an ancient Viking thrift shop? Let's take a breath and really picture this weird scene unfolding. Perhaps the Vikings put their haul up on a local marketplace, flashing their petty crime like it's a new line of hipster clothing. "Get your fine silver here. Ever wanted to look like a Christian relic?" they'd say, holding up a gaudy chalice with enthusiasm you could only describe as slightly off-putting. So here you are, at the shore, witnessing a moment that might just resemble a sitcom sketch. Vikings bumbling in their heights of glory, while the rest of the world watches, from behind curtains, noting the audacity and absurd plot twists. Ah, yes, just another day in medieval Europe, where muddy shores bring tales of raiders and riches, and chronicles where prayer meets the sound of metal clinking, a timeless dance of mischief and mayhem that never quite goes out of style.
Chapter 9. The Terrified Monk and His Shiny Dilemma. Hey guys, pull your blankets a little tighter, because we're diving into a scene that's about as comfortable as an ill-fitting shoe filled with gravel. 650 A.D., Europe. Picture this, a monastery that holds more glistening treasure than a pirate's hoard, and one poor monk standing guard like a confused scarecrow caught in a windstorm. Let's take a minute to think about monks back then. They were like those earnest people at the gym who keep reminding you to hydrate while you're just there for the Wi-Fi. Ever wondered what it was like to be one of those monks, clutching onto silver and jeweled reliquaries with more anxiety than a toddler in a room full of balloons? Imagine trying to conduct the evening prayer as a shadowy army of Viking raiders looms nearby, ready to ruin your perfectly organized treasure collection simply because shiny things seem to magically attract ransackers. Just how did these courageous monks hold their ground against what looked like a recruitment day for the world's most aggressive treasure hunters? As you lean in a little closer, imagine our monk, Brother Egbert, let's call him that. Yes, Brother Egbert, standing sentry among the glimmering wealth of the monastery. He's gripping a silver chalice in one hand, ready to either use it as a defensive weapon or as a vessel for some fervent prayers for divine intervention. You can practically hear him whispering to the chalice, "Dude, please don't let them take you. You're literally my only conversation partner, other than that ill-tempered goat." While Egbert paces nervously, the sound of Viking footsteps looms closer,
thundering with all the subtlety of a herd of stampeding elephants. Meanwhile, he's thinking back to brighter days of tranquility, ones that didn't involve grappling with a band of merrily looting raiders. What would it have been like to finally get that day of reflection? Spoiler, it's not today. Then there's the smell. Oh yes, the smell. A delightful mix of incense and the faint whiff of rotting vegetables from the Last Supper, mingled with the unmistakable odor of panic. You know that feeling when you're studying proudly for an exam, only to realize that the person next to you has just dunked an entire fish in cologne? Yeah, it's like that, but worse. Let's talk about Brother Egbert's worries. If I bury the chalice in the hay, will they take the hay thinking it's a hidden treasure? He thinks, envisioning Vikings with perplexed expressions, looking into a pile of straw for valuables, while muttering, "Why does it smell like goat mixed with yesterday's lasagna?" I mean, can you blame them? It's hard to imagine a terrifying raider in leather armor being eager to loot something that looks suspiciously like a farmyard critter's personal space. Ah, the irony. In this quiet life dedicated to prayer and reflection, here comes the chaos. As Brother
Egbert takes a deep breath. He smells fear mixed with a faint whiff of some badly aged cheese from the larder, a classic medieval snack, one could say. Suddenly, he spots the shadow of the Viking captain, a figure with a beard that could double as a small forest, standing taller than the tallest onion. With each footstep, Egbert's thoughts escalate. What would my fellow monks do? Grab the silver and just run? But where? The nearest tree or shrubbery wouldn't do. After all, dodging between trees was for those adventurous young men down in the village, not for an elderly monk with a heart rate that could resemble a drum roll from an overzealous orchestra. Oh, dear God, what kind of horror movie have I stumbled into? He mutters under his breath, praying that the local wildlife appears and distracts the Vikings. Perhaps a family of squirrels could break the tension, because surely they would prefer that over shiny silver. As our valiant monk stands guarding his treasure more zealously than a child with their last cookie, Viking laughter spills from the shore, a cacophony of bravado mixed with mischief that would make anyone think they've mistakenly wandered into a comedy club rather than battlefield planning. It feels like a scene stolen from a bizarre medieval sitcom, an oddly hilarious struggle between a well-meaning monk and a bunch of raucous raiders proficient in treasure hunting but decidedly poor in reasoning. How absurd would it be if, in the middle of their chaotic shenanigans, Viking warriors paused to debate the ethical implications of stealing from a monastery? Should we be doing this? One might ask, clutching a glimmering silver spoon. I mean, they could really use that for prayer. You can just picture other Vikings rolling their eyes as they prepare to raid, shrugging off the moral compass like it's a mantle too heavy to bear. And just as it seems Brother Egbert's fate hangs in the balance, as narrow as a cat in a peel-off layer potato chip bag, something miraculous happens, something incredible, something soul-soothingly absurd. The youngest Viking trips over a wayward pebble, causing a chain reaction akin to dominoes falling in slow motion, each Viking falling onto the next in a magnificent comedic display. Mustering all of his courage, Brother Egbert lets out a defeated chuckle, stepping forward just as they tumble into a heap. Sometimes, in the chaos of life, or the chaos of Viking raiding,
The best response is to meet absurdity with the same level of confusion. After all, chaos sometimes leads to treasures far beyond gold, like resilience, laughter, and an unforgettable story, or perhaps even a newfound friendship with a forest full of squirrels. So now you breathe easy, not just for Brother Egbert, but for all the monks who, with their shiny treasures, remind us that adventures come in all forms, even from tales sprinkled with a little chaos and a touch of ridiculousness. Tension. Released, it seems that maybe, just maybe, silver wasn't the only treasure after all. And thus, the monastery, despite its challenges, stands strong against the dizzying tides of history, where shiny things will always find their way from the hand of one to the hands of many. Or perhaps a band of overzealous, comically confused Vikings, just searching for a snack. Chapter 10. The Coin of the Realm and the Brawny Blacksmith. Hey guys, snuggle in tightly, because we're about to step into a place where the currency is as ugly as a cat that has just lost its 9th life. A medieval mint around 650 AD. Picture yourself in a workshop bustling with energy, more chaotic than a toddler's birthday party gone wrong, with the clanging of hammers echoing through the air and the smell of hot metal wafting around like an aggressive cologne ad gone awry. You're right in the middle of a drama that's less about golden treasures and more about sheer grit. Now, let's talk about our brawny blacksmith. You envision a muscular figure, perhaps someone who looks like he could bench press a cow, and no, not a calico baby calf, but a full-grown one. He's there, forearms stretching like the branches of an ancient oak tree, sweat glistening down his rugged face, hammering away at a rough metal blank with the grace of a mountain goat on roller skates. The clang of iron strikes turn your scalp a bit numb, if you could feel your scalp, that is. Spoiler alert, the sound alone could give even the bravest Viking pause, making them reconsider their life choices. But you've got to wonder, what was going through the blacksmith's mind? Was he planning a glorious future, or simply trying to figure out how to make ends meet while avoiding that awkward tavern confrontation with the guy who keeps ordering the extravagant fish stew? You know the one. He insists on using a silver spoon, all while everyone else is trying to ignore the peculiar smell wafting from beneath his favorite hat. As our burly protagonist pounds the metal, let's set the scene. The workshop is hotter than a summer day in the Sahara, and not in a cute, cozy way. It's more like being trapped in a toaster oven, and you've decided to throw in a couple of marshmallows for good measure, only to find you've created some charred, abominable mix of melted goo. You can practically feel the heat radiating, offering you a tantalizing glimpse into the subtle joys of medieval life, like working in an oven where everyone's a little more than crispy around the edges. Now, this mint isn't just some quaint little shop. It's a hotbed of economic drama, more intense than a Game of Thrones episode. But instead of dragons and political intrigue, the stakes involve forging coins that look more like lopsided pancakes than the shiny little treasures you'd think they'd be. You know how some mornings you wake up and question all of your life choices? Well, think about the poor peasants receiving these coins. Is this real gold? Or did someone just stomp on the notion of currency after a long night of drinking questionable ale? Every clang of the hammer is a story. It cries out the tales of trades gone wrong, the dissatisfied peasants who show up demanding fair value for their potatoes. Yes, potatoes, which were all the rage until a particularly sassy priest
declared they were too fashionable for the likes of common folk. Who knew that tubers could incite such drama? You lean in, picturing the necessity for customization. Each coin produced might have its own unique dent, a collection of stories stamped in indifference. It's a bit like looking into your sock drawer. Sure, they all belong to you, but someone's definitely wearing those on the wrong feet. Maybe that makes you understand why the local populace is prone to accidentally using them as makeshift doorstops, or worse, sacrificial tributes in their attempts to gain favor from the gods of questionable luck. As the hammer strikes once more, sparks fly like over-enthusiastic confetti, causing the bewildered apprentice to jump, shrieking like a cat who just discovered its reflection. Really, it's an odd sight unless you know that nearly all apprentices are essentially fear-fueled bundles of awkwardness, armed with nothing but a dream of wielding iron with the elegance of a swan, which, truthfully, they will never manage. What else is happening around the mint? While our blacksmith is busy producing coins that would undoubtedly start a bidding war for most bizarrely shaped currency, the locals gather outside, grumbling more than a herd of disgruntled goats, loudly haggling over how many of those coins it would take to buy a single loaf of bread. Good luck deciphering the actual value of something that looks like it had a solid run-in at the local tavern's brewfest. Meanwhile, the aroma wafting through the open door isn't just from the freshly minted coins. It's also a medley of overcooked cabbage, something that might endeavor to be dinner, but is, let's be honest, more like a cruel joke. It supposedly smells like home, one villager might say, if home was built out of regret and the remnants of last week's market day. The overlord, having demanded his fair share of taxes, waits impatiently for his latest shipments. But are these coins truly worth the weight of their metal? Future historians might only find out by flipping through centuries-old receipts, wondering why so many taxes consisted of soggy vegetables and excess goat wool. The blacksmith continues hammering, as both an artist forging a livelihood and someone who might just be one coin away from a full-blown existential crisis. The scene comes alive as you picture all of this chaos. A muscular blacksmith shaping coins, the curious villagers hustling, the distant sound of a chicken squawking as if lobbying for its own currency rights. In the end, it's like a surreal medieval soap opera, where the stakes are high, but the humor inevitably reigns triumphant. Coins may be created, but the greatest currency flowing through this mint is the laughter echoing through the hearts and that lovely absurdity of daily medieval life. Now, as the hammer falls silent for a moment, you reflect, not just on the making of crude coins, but on every individual moment, each a treasure in its own right, filled with perfectly flawed beauty. In a world where gold might vanish and coins might arrive looking less dignified than expected, the richness remains in the stories each creation holds, just like the odd experiences we all share today in our own bustling markets of life. Chapter 11. The Royal Rumble of Currency. Hey guys, cozy up like a medieval peasant after a hard day of labor, because we're about to wander into a royal court that's as heated as a blacksmith's forge on a summer day. Picture it, 650 AD, and the Grand Hall is so fancy it's practically ready for a royal ball. Assuming the ball involves endless debates about silver coins instead of waltzing, which, as you can guess, is way less glamorous. Imagine chandeliers made out of animal hooves and goblets that look suspiciously like melted silver spoons. It's a complete affair where the stakes are as high as a jester on caffeine. Now, take a moment to ask yourself, why on earth does a currency crisis feel like a Monday morning meeting at the office? Ever felt the pressure of adulthood while juggling bills that mysteriously multiply like rabbits? Or maybe you found yourself wondering why on earth your online shopping cart is filled with items you clearly don't need, like a decorative ceramic unicorn. Imagine if you had to explain that to a medieval noble. Ah yes, Lord Wilhelm, I simply must have 7 surprisingly useless trinkets. Well, in this royal gathering, the officials are a mix of pompous nobles and anxious merchants, all passionately debating whether to standardize silver currency to save themselves from economic chaos. The air is thick with tension, much like that last-minute attempt to grab a snack before the fridge raider strikes. You can almost hear the nobles grumbling, "If we don't figure this out, I might have to interact with actual peasants." The horror! Picture one impatient noble, his gold-embroidered tunic straining under the pressure of his own opinions, declaring with a flourish, "We need silver coins that are universally accepted, or we'll end up in the depths of economic despair, reduced to bartering goats for cabbage." He gestures dramatically to a nearby serf who's sneaking a few glances through the door, oblivious to the tension, more enthralled by the scent of roasted meat wafting in from the kitchens, his stomach growling loudly enough to become part of the debate. Now, let's talk about the silver. The nobles wanted their silver currency to shine brighter than their own egos, but the coins were so poorly minted they resembled something more akin to discarded bottle caps than true currency. They were the kind of coins you'd find in your couch cushions after a movie night gone horribly wrong. Is this a quarter, or just a very sad, misshapen piece of metal? The confusion alone could start a new world war over chips and salsa. As the debate rages on, you might imagine one merchant standing up with enough nerve to question, "Are we truly using coins modeled after last year's stale bread? Because I swear, I could barter for a loaf without worrying someone's about to cry foul." The nobles gasped as if he'd just suggested a dance-off. Suddenly, the questions of value start Flying. What even is a fair trade for a cart of cabbages? 2 of those dubious coins?
Perhaps a goat with a slightly better personality. Everywhere you look, officials are flailing their arms as if they are conducting some bizarre orchestra of confused peasants and distracted chickens. Imagine a world where peasants actually understand the value of what they're receiving. I'd rather wear a sock on my head, another noble exclaims, shrugging off the suggestion with all the finesse of a drunken bard. The mere thought of it sends shivers down their spines, because in their glittering world, that was the equivalent of throwing a party and forgetting the drinks. While up on the elevated dais, the king is attempting to keep control, but you can practically hear the creaking of his crown. Quiet down, everyone. Can we focus on the pressing issue of keeping our economy from collapsing like a poorly built wattle wall? He fiddles with his overly elaborate scepter. Seriously, it's like he's trying to win a medieval craft contest. But amidst all this royal ruckus, each noble has their own agenda, which is convenient for comedic purposes. Hey, don't let the economy crash. I've got a haircut appointment next Tuesday. You, having taken a seat next to a rather fidgety noble, catch whispers of ancient ghost tales of a curse, the curse of the poor coin, which can only be broken by establishing the first proper mint. The very thought of it almost sends you into fits of laughter. After all, how would one actually break a curse? Maybe by tossing 3 goat hooves into the nearby river. Or is that just what they call a Thursday on the other side of town? As debates grow more intense, the stench of roasted meats and sweat mingles in a way that can only be described as disturbingly aromatic. This gathering really is less of a political meeting and more of an episode of medieval bake-off gone wrong. Why fret over coins when you've got a banquet spread worthy of greatest modern-day Pinterest fails? Imagine charred meats alongside blackened cabbage. Style points might not count for much, but they provide the comedic relief needed when everyone's about to bite the dust from economic despair. Eventually, in a moment of clarity, or perhaps sheer exhaustion, an aging noble with a mishmash of opinions manages to propose an agreement. What if we set a standard? Uniform coinage. Think of the peasants, or at the very least, think of our poor merchants trying to figure out if they're holding a coin or an oddly shaped rock. His statement earns a laugh that echoes through the stone walls, a fitting reminder that even in the most absurd of circumstances, humor can rise, even if it's slower than a drunk frog. And just like that, the tension begins to disperse, much like the aroma of cabbage when the dinner bell rings. A truly dangerous game. Whoever said that chaos and comedy couldn't coexist in history clearly never survived a medieval council meeting, because it's more entertaining than anything on daytime television. So let's take a moment to appreciate this chaotic gathering, one that makes you realize that even amidst the clamor of currency crises, there's a simple truth. Sometimes, laughter is the best currency of all. Plus, it's way easier than dealing with the business of minting coins that everyone agrees on. It's a lesson not just from history, but from our own bewildering lives, where the exchanges we make are often worth an awful lot, even when they are wrapped up in the most absurd of packages.
Chapter 12. The silver shenanigans. Let's talk about money. Ah, the universally debated topic that brings people together like a potluck where everyone accidentally brings potato salad. Our focus tonight is the esteemed denarius, that little silver coin that's about as valuable as your neighbor's unsolicited advice. At least, if your neighbor happens to be an overbearing noble in Charlemagne's court. Picture that poor coin resting there on an old, cracked wooden table, daring you to approach it, perhaps even muttering under its breath, "Good luck trying to find me during a market day." You'd wake up one sunny morning in 650 AD, only to find yourself in a world where the economy appears to be run by a gaggle of chickens. Seriously, if you've ever been confused about the value of your coffee in the modern world, try living in a time when you could walk into a market with a goat and a loaf of bread, and if you squinted just right, you could walk out with a full set of kitchen pots. If you manage to haggle, of course. It's like bartering on eBay, but everyone is a little too worried about whether the goat will end up in a soup instead of getting a fair trade. Now, let's just imagine for a moment how this system backfired spectacularly. You'd stroll into a bustling market, feeling confident, not from sheer bravado, mind you, but more from desperation. Cabbages were undoubtedly the elite currency in your village, but more often than not, you'd get tricked into thinking that last week's wilted turnip held the same value as a pristine apple. Of course I'll trade this cabbage for 5 turnips. They're not wilting at all. They're just practicing their dramatic, "I'm about to throw a musical" poses, you might counter, trying to convince yourself that the dank scent wafting from that stinky turnip was just a side effect of its high moral ground. Meanwhile, you can almost hear the chimes of the market bell, bringing forth an array of merchants clutching their meager goods. But imagine trying to pay for a loaf of bread with an ill-shaped coin that looks like someone took a metal disc and decided to perform some avant-garde art with a hammer. Excuse me, but is this supposed to be a coin or just a very sad metal pancake? You might inquire with incredulity as the baker squints at you like you've just suggested a philosophical debate on the existential meaning of bread. Speaking of coins, let's not forget the wonderful denarius, all polished up to fool you into thinking you were handling something worthwhile. But alas, when it came to the actual market day, they were as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Every time you fished one out of your pocket, you'd mentally prepare yourself for the inevitable embarrassment. Because, let's face it, there's nothing worse than realizing your coin looks less like currency and more like a funeral home's rejected wallpaper sample. Yes, good.
Sir, this coin definitely came straight from the coffin aisle. Nothing but high-quality craftsmanship here. And then there was the delightful surprise of coin depreciation. Picture this. One day your lovely denarii were worth a goat, and the next they could scarcely buy you a thumbtack. Yep, welcome to the magical world of medieval inflation, where your morning bread might actually cost you an arm and a leg, while the same bread the next week might just require a favor from the town's cobbler.
I'm telling you, a flip of the coin can land you either hearthside warmth or an unfortunate encounter with a smelly pig, you'd say, while frantically trying to soothe your finances like a juggler with an angry bear. As debates raged on in the royal courts, you'd think the nobles might have had a light bulb moment. "Let's mint a proper coin," they'd exclaim, but that was like cats trying to organize a meeting. Hilariously chaotic and not quite effective. You'd overhear them musing, "What if we put the image of someone respected on it?" Which, by the way, led to the nobility resembling a mix of their best frozen poses and a toddler's finger-painting disaster. "Ah, yes, and we'll make sure we add some glitter. That'll keep the peasants entranced while they starve." But can we take a moment to appreciate the absurdity of a coiny, holy grail quest? Imagine knights galloping through mud, fervently searching for a professional mint, their motto echoing loudly, "To the mint, away!" Meanwhile, peasants patiently waiting for any hint that their currency might one day be worth the price of those fried bug snacks they'd been eyeing at the market. And just when you thought the situation couldn't become any more absurd, there would be an unexpected twist. Merchants banded together to demand change, forgetting they had to pay for their goods somehow. "Pay me in what? A song?" you can hear an exasperated merchant yell into the crowd. The peasants sighed along with him, muttering about the days they could barter a slightly bruised apple for all the hope in the world. So here you are, deep in the medieval plates of life, awareness dawning that perhaps, just perhaps, some currency crises are so tangled they make explaining your 401k to your grandparents sound like a mere walk in the park. Except, of course, this park just happens to be filled with wild boars. You chuckle softly, realizing the dance of economics is merely a clever play of historical theater, where laughter often proves to be the best currency after all. It's a cosmic comedy wrapped in a silver coin, where you'd give anything to trade your supermarket experience for an uproarious medieval market. But not literally, please. Keep your garlic-scented turnips to yourself. Chapter 13. The Muddy Odyssey. Hey guys, tonight we're embarking on an adventure that's muddier than your ex's love life after its first stormy breakup. Picture this: a solitary merchant trundling down a dirt path so questionable it could win an award for Best Cinematic Drama in the category of Surface You Wouldn't Want to Walk On. Yes, it's only 650 AD, and our brave merchant is hauling his meager goods like a pack mule with aspirations of being a high-fashion model. Buckle up, or maybe just lay back, because you're about to experience an evening more slippery than a penguin on roller skates. Now, before we go any further, I must gently encourage you to like, subscribe, and comment, only if you actually enjoy this delightful tumble through history, mind you. If the thought of medieval financial woes makes you giggle like a child who just discovered their first whoopee cushion, then you're in the right place. Just dim the lights, put on a fan to recreate those breezy medieval morning chills, and get cozy, preferably with a blanket that doesn't smell like last week's turnip stew. Ever wondered what it's like to be a merchant in medieval times? I mean, who hasn't dreamed of lugging around a tiny leather purse with a few copper coins while navigating swamps of uncertainty? Or how about questioning if your life choices have led you to a road laced with the philosophical dilemmas of, are these onions worth more than my dignity? Let's dive into that world. Congratulations!
You've just woken up in 650 AD, where the status quo smells faintly of damp earth, and ambition is frequently challenged by muddy paths and rogue potholes. Imagine yourself alive during this epoch, not just alive, mind you, but a merchant. You may envision yourself sporting a tunic that was all the rage in your village last Tuesday. As you step onto the muddy track, the squelching sound echoing beneath your feet is like music to your ears, if you enjoy avant-garde jazz mixed with the sounds of unfortunate splashes. Oh, but those aren't catchy beats. They're merely reminders that your shoes are about to become as fashionable as a sack of potatoes. And while you schlep your goods along, your leather purse clinks like it's trying to form a rock band on its own, filled with only a few coins. Can you really call that music, or is it more of a sad dirge? Just think, pulling it out at the market might evoke pity more than respect, like showing up to a potluck with nothing but packaged condiments. No, really, it's artisanal mustard. It was imported, sort of. You skirt the edge of a mud puddle that could only be accurately described as a bog, a bubble of adventure waiting to swallow whole any noble or peasant brave enough or foolish enough to venture too close. Stepping carefully, you remind yourself that losing a boot could generate enough embarrassing social media fodder, if social media existed, making you the meme of the week. Oh look, there goes that wary merchant trying to save his trousers from a swampy fate. The trek becomes a mental game. If I squint, I can totally believe that mud is just another fancy root vegetable. Can root vegetables wander, you wonder aloud, while trying to decipher if the lumpy shapes ahead are potatoes or the local livestock's not-so-fresh contributions to the ground? Spoiler alert, it's a mystery. If only you had a pair of medieval sneakers. Alas, it was all leather and leather, and alas, more leather. And there you are, taking swipes at insects that seem to think you're the buffet of the day. Oh, sweet nectar, how can I taste you? They buzz around your head as if auditioning for an off-Broadway production titled Buzz in the Mud. You can just imagine the giggling insects thrusting their thoraxes skyward, their little counterparts applauding them for bravery in the face of imminent smacking. Unwinding from your muddy adventure, you finally reach a village market where dreams take a turn for the absurd. Merchants are gathered, proudly presenting their wares, the most strategic arrangement of fungi you've ever seen. Yes, these are wild mushrooms. You can eat them or not. It's a game of culinary roulette. Stepping tentatively into the thrumming chaos, you realize that trading requires more than coins. It requires think-fast skills you currently lack. Think on your feet, they say, like it's that easy to barter with questionable fungi and a couple of turnips that are about to start a revolt. But here's the kicker. As your eyes scan the tables, your tiny purse seems lighter than your sense of direction, like your dreams of prosperity are stuck in traffic somewhere. The local baker might turn that lovely worn coin of yours into a loaf based on sheer sympathy. And let's be real, who hasn't had one of those awkward moments debating whether the result is bread or a mystery loaf that could double as a doorstop? Navigating back through town, you catch sight of a group of peasants gossiping about the last merchant who tripped over a goat. It's like he was practicing to be a fascinating statue. Do you think we should give him a new name? They wonder, cackling loudly. You nod in silent agreement, wondering if you'll be the next historical figure known for diving headfirst into the atrium of embarrassment. And with that, your journey continues, shedding light on the eternal struggle of trade against a backdrop of muddy roads, overabundant livestock, and far too many awkward exchanges. After all, in a world where a bad journey down a pioneering path can invite unexpected hilarity, you embrace the absurd and carry on. Sometimes, in the muddy trenches of life's commerce, laughter is the most valuable currency you can have. So, as you drift off into the surreal reverie of your dreams, a marketplace echoing with laughter, a world where every muddy step feels like a dance, remember, there's always a bit of joy waiting to be unearthed, even in the muckiest of situations. It's not just a road you travel, but a comedic saga begging to be told. Begging. Chapter 14. The Sciata Saga. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something shinier than your Aunt Betty's brass knuckles, the absolutely riveting world of small-scale medieval currency. Picture this. It's 650 AD, and you've just found yourself squatting in a busy Anglo-Saxon market, surrounded by merchants hawking goods that radiate both charm and a hint of questionable hygiene. Now, take a moment to appreciate the tiny sciata, a coin so small and insignificant it makes your dentist's mini toothbrush look like a lumberjack's axe. But don't let its size fool you. This coin is your ticket to participating in what people stubbornly call the economy. Though honestly, some of you have had smoother transactions at the flea market. Now, before we really get into the thick of it, I must kindly ask you to like, subscribe, and comment, only if you genuinely enjoy this mishmash of absurdity and historical enlightenment, of course. If the mere thought of medieval financing makes you chuckle like a toddler who just discovered their reflection in a puddle, welcome aboard. Dim the lights, provide that gentle breeze with a fan, and wrap yourself up like a burrito in your coziest blanket. If only we could have a little sciata magic to make this more engaging. Now, let's ponder. Have you ever wondered how to haggle over a loaf of bread when you're too broke to buy a loaf of bread? Or how about trying to buy apples without looking like someone whose pockets are sewn shut? What's it like in an era where money can vanish faster than that leftover pizza from last Friday? And honestly, have you ever tried to convince someone that the change you hand them is worth just as much as their descendants' dream of investing in Bitcoin? Congratulations. You've just woken up in the Middle Ages, where the only things smaller than your wallet might be the coins you have to negotiate with. Welcome to the colorful chaos of the village market, where the aroma of fresh bread mingles suspiciously with what might be last week's fish. It's a world of barter, where everyone seems to be shouting and longing for slightly better living conditions. Picture it. You're standing there in a tunic that's slightly too big because wearing hand-me-downs is starting to feel like an Olympic sport. Enter the sciata, the precious little coin in your hand, glinting as if it were a rare gem discovered by a particularly industrious raccoon. This tiny piece of minted metal symbolizes more than its weight and worth. It's the lifeblood of local economies, almost as valuable as the rumor mill gossip surrounding the blacksmith's latest failed relationship. Now, for those of you who thought inflation was a modern problem, let me enlighten you. In this period, inflation took a different form. You could trade a whole pile of those delightful, albeit questionable, turnips for a loaf of bread, or a half slice of bread, depending on how generous the baker was.
Feeling that day. Yes, you'd have to spin yourself a tale about the nutritional benefits of turnips, while awkwardly showing the bakers your particularly gorgeous sciata. Imagine the baker pondering over whether your lavish tales of turnip superiority are worth enough to part with his bread. No pressure, though. And as you navigate the hustle and bustle, imagine a fellow merchant eyeing your sciata like a hawk. You can just picture him leaning in and whispering, "Is that bronze I see? I'll trade you half a loaf and my best compliment if you can convince me that it's worth its weight in fear of a potato shortage." Yet here's the kicker. When you finally hand over that delicate coin, it doesn't just disappear into the ether. No, my friend, you're participating in a grand tradition of economic storytelling and the world of haggling. It's like playing high-stakes poker, only your chips are made of metal, and the stakes involve whether or not your next meal belongs to the bread vendor or the jolly lady who quietly hawks soggy cabbage on the corner. Oh, and did I mention the sounds? The clinking of coins as they're tossed about, like suburban teenagers tossing loose change into a fountain, hoping for good luck. A hopeful wish that maybe, just maybe, they won't have to eat porridge for the 4th straight day. Intersect your tales of bargain hunting with the cacophony of merchants shouting, "Fresh fish! Not so fresh fish! Probably fish!" as they clamor to catch your attention. You realize you're not just an observer, but a player in this comedic drama. A world where economies rise and fall based on the weather forecast and how recently someone cleaned their shop. As you wander deeper into this bustling scene, imagine attempting to barter with a lady selling chickens. You present your sleek sciata and, with a gleam in your eye, insist that the chicken could be the start of a poultry empire. Spoiler alert. She may not be as impressed as you'd hoped. "No, I will not take a coin that smells of last week's turnips," she squawks, waving her feathered charges around like she's officiating a chicken wrestling match. So, just when you think you've secured a magical deal with some fresh eggs, you spot a group of peasants around the next stall debating the merits of soggy carrots versus cabbage that looks as though it's had better days. This is life in the medieval economy, a battleground where the stakes are real and dignity is often lost amongst the trading of stale bread and questionable vegetables. Yet through it all, that little sciata remains snug in your grasp, a reminder that sometimes, despite the muddy roads and haggling over morsels, joy can be found in even the smallest transactions, provided you can laugh your way through them. As you close your eyes to drift off, you may just dream of turning that sciata into legends of barter and banter that echo in the recesses of medieval storytelling for centuries to come. After all, every coin has a tale. Some tales just happen to be better than others. Chapter 15. The Weighty Economy of Cloth and Coin. Hey there, dreamy adventurer. Buckle up. We're about to embark on a journey through the hustle and bustle of the early medieval marketplace, where currency is as light as a feather, but comes with weighty problems. Take a moment and picture a rickety little scale wobbling precariously with a scrappy pile of shimmering silver fragments teetering on one side and a beautifully woven piece of cloth on the other. Yes, that's right. In this era, your wealth wasn't just a measure of shiny coins, but also of soft, cozy fabric,
a delightful dichotomy that wiggles through the very fabric of society. As the morning sun rises, you sniff the air exhilaratingly infused with the aroma of bread baking and the rather questionable notes of unsold fish wafting by. Fresh, if we can call it that, vegetables are on display, brightly colored, yet suspiciously squishy. You might think that is just the price of progress, but I assure you, it's mainly due to the vast variety of spoiling techniques that our medieval friends seem to have perfected. Now, dear listeners, as your mind drifts, let's ponder. Have you ever tried calculating the value of a great piece of clothing while simultaneously haggling over the price of bread? Or found yourself wrestling with the question of whether a single string of coins is worth the fine cloak that might make you look like a noble in a game of medieval dress-up yours truly is only too happy to play in our dreams? Congratulations! You've just woken up in 650 AD, a time when the economy was just like trying to figure out which loose change could get you a hot meal and a cold glance from the baker. Truly, it's enough to make a person a little dizzy, so no rushing to grab that imaginary wallet sitting in your pocket. Instead, let's dawdle our way through the market, observing how the grand operation of trade and economy operated during times long gone. Let's talk about that scale and what it symbolizes in this medieval exchange, the weight-based economy. You can hear the merchants shouting, 2 layers of silver for a robe fit for a king. Or was it 3? I forget, as they scramble to find their treasures amongst the scraps. Ah, the confusion of weighing money and measuring its worth, akin to trying to assess whether a leftover sandwich smells more like garlic or regret. Ah, but here's a twist. As you set forth in this bustling realm, you also start to realize something rather ironic. The robust cloth on one side of the scale, while it seems unassuming, could very well transform the laughing faces of tradesfolk as they calculate the power of comfort, the true gold of the time. You suddenly remember your friend from back home who hoarded all the fancy blankets and swore they were investments. Well, folks, turns out they were ahead of their time, because the cloth in this enchanting market could buy you everything from dinner to, let's say, a spirited
Debate about whether pigeons are the second coming of dragons. You are now watching a clever merchant juggles the dynamics of the scale as if he were a circus performer. You can almost hear the collective gasp of onlookers as he proposes a brilliant trade. 2 scatas for an exquisite shirt, or maybe a good pair of pants. Why not both? And the crowd murmurs in awe, contemplating whether a pair of pants could ever change their fortunes, or, and dare I say, prevent chafing during those lively medieval dances. Now, while you may think that parting with that skein of silver is quite the sacrifice, it's variously like indulging in a slice of cake while your trainer gives you the look, a battle for your soul and sanity. But imagine the thrill as you place your one shining coin on the balanced scale, wondering if that will translate into a warm meal, or perhaps
even a sturdy pair of shoes that wouldn't insult your feet. Then picture the drama as you take a step back, your thoughts jumbled by the various transactions unfolding around you. A lady, adorned in fabric that shines like the sun and smells like a dozen flowers, proclaims audibly, "I'll trade you 2 of my finest chicken eggs for your richest piece of cloth," to which the man beside her glares as if she offered him last year's turnip soup. The sheer absurdity of your surroundings makes you wonder if you've inadvertently stumbled into a performance art piece about medieval economics. Senses overwhelmed, yet an involuntary grin creeps across your face. In this ballet of bartering, how could anyone dare to argue that wealth is defined by shiny coins alone? Oh, and let us not forget the smell emanating from that rotting vegetable stall. It's an aroma so foul that you might swear that fellow with the twinkling eyes and a mischievous smile cooking something spicy at the corner might just be the solution to getting people to trade their fancy apparel for a little air freshener, or a swift exit from the market entirely. So, as you drift deeper into this absurd yet glorious tapestry of trade, remember this. The medieval economy wasn't built just on silver and gold, but on laughter, desperation, cleverness, and the occasional sense of dread that clumsily acts like a chatty acquaintance at a party. You could say it's like dealing with your neighbor's demanding pet, navigating the line between affection and sheer, utter chaos. And so, as the scale tips ever so gently, rest easy knowing that amidst the clamor of shrewd merchants and bewildered customers, you're witnessing a precious moment in history, where life is less about the weight of your purse and more about the stories imprinted on the fabric of everyday existence. Because truly, if you squint hard enough, you'll discover that life's most valuable offerings often come wrapped in something a little less shiny, but infinitely more rewarding.
Chapter 13. The Muddy Odyssey. Hey guys, tonight we're embarking on an adventure that's muddier than your ex's love life after its first stormy breakup. Picture this: a solitary merchant trundling down a dirt path so questionable it could win an award for Best Cinematic Drama in the category of Surface You Wouldn't Want to Walk On. Yes, it's only 650 AD, and our brave merchant is hauling his meager goods like a pack mule with aspirations of being a high-fashion model. Buckle up, or maybe just lay back, because you're about to experience an evening more slippery than a penguin on roller skates. Now, before we go any further, I must gently encourage you to like, subscribe, and comment, only if you actually enjoy this delightful tumble through history, mind you. If the thought of medieval financial woes makes you giggle like a child who just discovered their first whoopee cushion, then you're in the right place. Just dim the lights, put on a fan to recreate those breezy medieval morning chills, and get cozy, preferably with a blanket that doesn't smell like last week's turnip stew. Ever wondered what it's like to be a merchant in medieval times? I mean, who hasn't dreamed of lugging around a tiny leather purse with a few copper coins while navigating swamps of uncertainty? Or how about questioning if your life choices have led you to a road laced with the philosophical dilemmas of, are these onions worth more than my dignity? Let's dive into that world. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 650 AD,
where the status quo smells faintly of damp earth, and ambition is frequently challenged by muddy paths and rogue potholes. Imagine yourself alive during this epoch. Not just alive, mind you, but a merchant. You may envision yourself sporting a tunic that was all the rage in your village last Tuesday. As you step onto the muddy track, the squelching sound echoing beneath your feet is like music to your ears, if you enjoy avant-garde jazz mixed with the sounds of unfortunate splashes. Oh, but those aren't catchy beats. They're merely reminders that your shoes are about to become as fashionable as a sack of potatoes. And while you schlep your goods along, your leather purse clinks like it's trying to form a rock band on its own, filled with only a few coins. Can you really call that music, or is it more of a sad dirge? Just think, pulling it out at the market might evoke pity more than respect, like showing up to a potluck with nothing but packaged condiments. No, really, it's artisanal mustard. It was imported, sort of. You skirt the edge of a mud puddle that could only be accurately described as a bog, a bubble of adventure waiting to swallow whole any noble or peasant brave enough or foolish enough to venture too close. Stepping carefully, you remind yourself that losing a boot could generate enough embarrassing social media fodder, if social media existed, making you your way through the stalls. You can't help but admire the imaginative ways people refer to their wares. The goldsmith draped in chains still manages to look a smidge suspicious, declaring, "This here necklace will get you in with the nobles." You squint at the overly shiny piece and can't shake the feeling it's simply cobwebs strung together with a good dash of bravado. But wait, let's not overlook the merchant selling exotic spices. Ever so kindly arranged within wells of leather, they're bundled as if they were rare treasure. As you lean in to inhale a fragrance, a smoky pepper known as the kiss of dragon unfurls just a little too strong, and you wonder if it could serve as a mild weapon, or at the very least, a conversation starter. Then comes the armory, where heroes, aka people who possess an affinity for overly shiny helmets, hustle past, clutching shields adorned with some creative creature. Perfect for resolution, they proclaim, as if defending yourself from a wild boar or your pesky neighbor's in-laws is somehow a routine Tuesday adventure. You chuckle at how this chaos mirrors your modern-day life. Imagine haggling for a parking space, each driver belligerently shouting about why their spot is obviously better because it's closer to the cafe. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Or consider the fish market. It's remarkably similar to your local grocery store on the weekend, where shoppers dart about, arms cradled against imaginative emergency chicken nuggets and suspiciously long expired yogurt. As day turns to dusk, the marketplace takes on a life of its own, enhanced by lively bickering and robust storytelling. Everyone competes to be the protagonist of their daily saga. Merchants brag about their latest deals, while gossiping about the lady with the ill-fitting wool coat. Some craft their fashion sense like art one day, and, let's be honest, some look like they've dressed up as scarecrows that fell into a dye barrel. But amidst this lively hubbub, you Ying actually feel the pulse of a society experiencing a delicate rebirth, where money in the form of coin is starting to regain its charm. Yes, gold coins and silver pieces are sprouting back to life like a well-nurtured vegetable garden. It's enough to make anyone consider the absurdity of human progression, fighting over who gets what, how much to pay, and if someone else's turnip is worth more than a shiny penny. So as you drift deeper into the laughter and the chaos, remember this. The new era of trade and economy isn't just built on exchanging coins, but embraces the stories, misfits, and brilliance of people who dared to dream beyond their humble stalls. Ah, the beauty of a merchant's life, always entertaining, occasionally ridiculous, and ultimately, and quite hilariously, your entertaining ticket into the absurdity of existence. Let the night draw in, as the marketplaces around you slowly quiet down, and ponder the bizarre fact that while gold may shine bright, it's the laughter, misadventures, and downright silliness of life that make it truly precious. And as you take this all in, rest easy, for you are witnessing something special, even if it looks a little like a troop of starlings trying to figure out the exact choreography of a dance. Chapter 17. The King's Edict and the Coin Dilemma. Hey there, cozy traveler. Are you settled in? Perhaps you've draped a blanket over your legs, or snuggled up with a pillow so fluffy it could double as an extra layer of insulation. Tonight, we're speeding down a rabbit hole so bewildering that Alice might turn up with a bewildered look on her face, because we're diving into the strange world of medieval currency. Picture this. A brittle, rolled-up parchment scroll, its edges yellowed and brittle like your grandma's old blueberry pie recipe. This scroll isn't just any old piece of paper. It's a royal edict from a king who, for all his bravado, might still panic at the sight of a budget meeting. "Here, my loyal subjects," he proclaims, likely shouting at a gaggle of confused peasants and a few farm animals. "From henceforth, all shall accept this high-purity silver coinage." You can almost hear the peasants mumble under their breaths. "Great, but could you at least fund a new plow first?" So here we are in the luscious early Middle Ages, the year 650 AD, the time when people thought a proper nap was starting to seem like an important part of their to-do lists, far more so than figuring out the exact weight of a coin. Have you ever tried to stay awake in a history class, only to find yourself dozing off like a cat who's just been serenaded by a particularly boring violinist? That's probably how this king felt after realizing his shiny policies didn't quite translate to actual food on the table. Now, as we meander through the cobblestone roads, and by meander, I mean trip over your own sandals every few steps, envision a bustling castle courtyard. A raucous crowd has gathered to celebrate the Great Silver Coinage Revelation, as if someone has just unveiled a new flavor of ice cream. Because, let's be honest, who doesn't want to part with their hard-earned dough for something just as impenetrable as the mysteries of life, like why your cat insists on knocking things off the table? Gather round, friends. Here you can nearly taste the anticipation. Or maybe that's just the stew from the nearby pot.
it's anyone's guess. At the center of this grand assembly, you see a herald, his voice booming, yet somehow still a bit squeaky, chronicling the virtues of this new silver-rich lifestyle. Thus it shall be said that all ruffians with homemade coins will face a consequence so gruesome they may wish they had stuck to bartering with sheep instead. Sure, it sounded potent, but really, the peasants were just flomaning over who had to step outside for a proper bucket bath afterward. So why this sudden crisis in currency, you ask? Well, imagine trying to get your morning coffee, but all the local cafes have swapped your dollars for something that resembles a whittled fork. Nothing unravels the foundation of your day quite like unexpected economic adjustments. Now imagine this king. Let's call him
King Edward Fluffypants III, sitting at his throne, hand-sewn cushions by his side, pondering the future. Valiantly shall I finalize a pure coinage, he declares, his crown only slightly askew, probably due to a weekend-long celebration that went a little too hard on the mead. The people shall know quality when they see it. High purity they shall chant. Of course, what the concerned subjects really wanted was not just a shine on their coins, but to uniformly fit their coinage in the pockets of their tunics designed specifically for rotisserie chicken emergencies. That's right, those dresses were not meant for oversized items. So, what next? Well, here's where logic takes a vacation, folks. The long and short of it, suddenly, everyone went on a treasure hunt to dig up gold coins, though no scholar could quite figure out where all the gold had vanished to in the first place. Like a group of kids searching under the sofa for the remote control, the peasants dug up the fields, the cow pastures, even the occasional heirloom. But why did the gold vanish, you ponder, swiping at an imaginary fly? What did the gold ever do to us? Let's frame it. Imagine trying to pay for a bus ticket with Monopoly money, then being informed, sorry, mate, we only accept cash. Now that is the teenage truth tucked into a nostalgic game of absurdity. Yes, the king's decree sounded great, but the reality? The noblemen suddenly invited more chaos than they'd anticipated. It was as if a yelling goat had been set loose, and no one quite knew how to catch it. The annual prices of fish skyrocketed as it became common practice to barter with literal fish and slightly moldy bread instead. You could say folks learned a new skill in improvisational cooking, creating mouth-watering dishes such as fish surprise, a shocking event every time. Medieval economy indeed was more convoluted than necessary. So, as you begin to nod off, dreams of fish, coins, and men in tunics dancing their way to prosperity, remember this. In the grand play that was medieval life, the true riches lay not in gold, but in the laughter and absurdity of the journey itself. And if you listen closely, you can hear echoes of King Fluffypants calling for order, perhaps to settle who exactly gets to audition for the role of dancing peasant in the next economic crash. Sleep tight, dear friend, for the night may bring a new challenge, or perhaps just a peacefully plump chicken named Bert who believes he's destined for great things, like dinner. Chapter 18. A Bishop's Bling and the Economics of Piety. Welcome back, dear wanderer. As dreams drift around you like wisps of inescapable drowsiness, let's dive into the life of a man whose wealth was as spectacular as his fashion choices, our dear Bishop Fabricius. Imagine, if you will, a bishop decked out in finery, holding an ornate silver crucifix that glints in the dim light of a chapel more grimy than an unwashed sheep. Yes, my friends, this isn't just any bishop. He's basically the medieval version of a TikTok influencer, minus the filters and post feeds. Now, you might want to ask, what's the deal with all this wealth? Imagine a room filled with haggard peasants, dressed in tunics that barely qualify as clothing, grimly eyeing the opulent silver crucifix like they're starving kids staring at a cake in an infuriatingly unreachable display case. One can almost hear the unspoken thoughts floating through the air. Hey, Bishop, could you share a bit of your treasure? Or are we just supposed to worship from afar while you flaunt your bling? The bishop, feigning modesty, might reply, "Ah, but these adornments are merely symbols of divine favor." Right, sure. That's what they all say about the glitzy stuff, isn't it? As the early Middle Ages shuffled along like a sleepy sloth on a Tuesday, the church was the reigning economic powerhouse. Imagine a game of Monopoly where one player keeps pulling all the get-out-of-jail-free cards, while the rest of you are huddling in the corner, waiting for someone to land on Boardwalk so you can finally get that mortgage paid. You may think that the church did it for spiritual reasons, but let's be honest. It was a business model dripping with good old-fashioned greed varnish. So, here's the scene. Bishop Fabricius, an expert in the fine art of bilking both the pious and the profit-minded alike, held court. His silver crucifix looked like something you'd see in a horror movie, only less plot twist and more the audacity of wealth. Was he trying to send a message? To remind everyone that a little bejeweled, shiny thing could guarantee his spot in heaven. Think of it as the original Bling Bishop campaign, only this time the only followers were either drooling in envy or rolling their eyes behind his back. Now, this was not just about flaunting wealth, though it definitely helped with the whole holier-than-thou vibe. In truth, these extravagant displays were designed to stabilize a wilting economy. For all those who think medieval life was punctuated by feasting and merriment, welcome to the reality check. Peasants were not feasting. They were grinding their teeth over last week's turnip stew. With the slow, almost comical tumble into financial disarray, every shiny buckle or glimmering holy artifact was a beacon of hope, or possibly a glistening effigy of despair in a world where gold coins had become as mythical as unicorns. You see, the church provided something the average Delilah and Doug didn't get much of, a semblance of stability in an age when a good night's sleep was often interrupted by nightmares of unpaid taxes. They dealt with the economy by promising heavenly rewards for those who sacrificed their earthly wealth. It's sort of like clicking "I agree" on 47 pop-up notifications. Everyone holds their breaths, just hoping to make it to the other side without a complete mental breakdown. Imagine the whispers on the cobblestone streets as desperate villagers peddled goods and livestock like they were in a medieval Shark Tank, hoping for a break, but getting only a "no thanks," or worse, a divine elbow to the gut. And let's be clear, those who couldn't make the right sacrifices to the bishop,
If you found yourself on the wrong side of the economic ladder, you might as well have been trying to win an Olympic medal in potato sack racing. It just wasn't going to happen. Time marches on, and so does the bishop's financial escapade. He'd travel from town to town, his retinue of followers trailing behind him like a cacophony of clattering pots and pans. "Hark, the holy man cometh," they would shout, and inevitably another poor merchant would go belly up, trying to scrape together enough offerings to avoid a curse. The economy twisted, turned, and, because why not, danced the Macarena, keeping nobody in charge, and everyone teetering on the edge of a nervous breakdown about how many fish were truly worth a single silver coin. And thus, while Bishop Fabricius strutted about with his glimmering crucifix and prosperous claims of salvation, the everyday folk struggled to figure out whether their next meal was coming from the church, their fields, or, let's be real, a neighbor's errant goat. So there you are, my friends, nestled in this medieval mess of muddled intentions and handheld crucifixes. If the financial crisis of the time taught us anything, it's that even in the shadows of wealth and sanctity, everyone was still trying to figure out who owed whom a favor, especially when you were using your next meal as currency. So as you let the soothing fabric of these stories envelop you like a cozy jump into an oversized bed, remember, the bishops may have held the keys to economic fortune, but humor remained the real currency of the common folk. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be enough to keep your dreams calm tonight. Or at least provide some comic relief until morning arrives with all its headache-inducing responsibilities. For the record, anyone offering a potato sack as an alternative attire, just know it wouldn't have won any fashion awards back in the day.
Chapter 19. A Dinar's Dream and the Miseries of Medieval Money. Hey guys, welcome to a world so absurd and medieval, you'd think the set designer was a goat on hallucinogens. Tonight, we're diving into the glittery chaos of the Islamic world between 650 AD and the early Middle Ages, a place where gold dinars and silver dirhams flowed like gossip at a village tea party. Just imagine, you're strutting around a bustling market where the currency sounds way cooler than just squinting at dirty coins. Now, as we settle into the warm embrace of this peculiar moment in history, let's take a few seconds to appreciate the bizarre realities of our daily lives. Have you ever wished your paycheck could magically transform into a shiny coin with a flick of your wrist? Or perhaps you've pondered why we can't just barter for avocado toast with the local barista. Can I get 4 soy lattes for a vintage LP and a slightly awkward hug? Sometimes it feels like navigating modern finance is a riddle wrapped in a mystery, the kind you'd find locked away in a crypt. So, dim the lights, grab that cozy blanket, and prepare yourself, because, congratulations, you've just woken up in 650 AD, fresh out of a Roman sleep pod and into a bustling market square. Picture this sprawling bazaar teeming with life, scents, and sounds. But hold the chicken, because it's about to get slightly complicated. Now, let's immerse ourselves in the daily escapades of currency in this magical land. Unbeknownst to many medieval peasants in Europe, the Islamic caliphates were doing the economic equivalent of a Bollywood dance number, twirling coin after coin into the thrumming marketplace. As you wander about this fantasy market, the radiant gold dinar tingles in your hands like a gentle whisper of fortune. This isn't just any gold. It's a cosmic ticket
to a world spinning faster than a shepherd chasing after a runaway sheep. And imagine the dinar's cousin, the silver dirham, strutting around. With shiny surfaces that catch the sun as though they were dazzling stars plucked straight from the sky, they are symbols of trade and abundance. Think about it. While European lords were sweating over livestock barter and the price of cabbages, our friends in the Islamic world were already creating an advanced and flowing monetary system, complete with intricate designs that would have made anyone, including your high school art teacher, super jealous. Yet, you have to wonder, did peasants and peddlers see this currency as a blessing or a daily burden? It's like trying to enjoy a delicious chocolate croissant while your ex is silently standing 3 feet away, judging how you savor every flaky bite. One minute you're rolling in coin, blissfully trading spices and cloth, and the next, you're nearly juggling your possessions as someone aggressively barters for half a loaf of moldy bread. Ah, springtime in the market square. As you wander further into this charming chaos, a persistent question arises. How were these shiny coins being transported anyway? Did they have a medieval version of a secure bank? Perhaps they just tossed it all into a suitably large goat-skin pouch and hoped for the best. But again, remember, we're talking about the Middle Ages. I can only assume security was as welcome as a lumberjack at a knitting circle. Let's take a moment and savor the absurdity of trading methods. Ever tried to barter as an awkward middle schooler at a lunch table? I'll give you my apple slices for your fruit roll-up. Oh, the tension was palpable. It must have been a dramatic affair back then as well, especially when trying to haggle over goods that could survive a nuclear fallout. Sure, I'll give you this beautiful silk for 3 jars of turnips. As if, in actuality, turnips were a desired currency of supreme value. Now picture this vibrant marketplace. The vast variety of wares is like a Pinterest board gone rogue. Fabrics of every color hang like a funky tapestry, while vendors shout prices like they're in a one-act play. Spice merchants will tempt you with aromas that could sweep you into an olfactory paradise, while nearby, a fishmonger operates a booth that smells more like a swamp monster on a bad day. As your senses get overloaded, the din of laughter, arguments, and sheer chaos fills the air. You suddenly feel like you've entered a medieval episode of Survivor, Bizarre Edition, and it's clear that your only goal is to make it out without being forced to haggle your way through a mountain of rotting cabbages. Now, while the Islamic world grew rich, Europe was stuck trying to figure out how to tell time without the ability to read a sundial on cloudy days. But that's a conversation for another bedtime. What's important here is the glorious transition, the exuberant dance of coins and commerce blossoming amid a society teetering on the brink of chaos. So, as you drift off near the sounds of shouting merchants and the faint wafting of spiced delights, remember, while Europe fumbled in a currency crisis, the Islamic world was tossing around shiny coins like confetti at a parade, audaciously alive in a financial spectacle that could probably teach your average accountant a thing or two. And just like that,
As the light of the bazaar slowly dims in your mind, drift away, knowing that behind every coin lies a story and a piece of absurd history that keeps us chuckling even centuries later, and maybe questioning why we didn't just barter for a unicorn while we were at it.
Chapter 20. The Great Caravan Caper. Merchants on the Move. Ah, picture this. The sun is hanging low in the sky like a lazy cat, and you find yourself amidst a caravan of European merchants boldly crossing a landscape drier than the humor at your last family gathering. These merchants, equipped with more furs than a pack of exuberant rabbits, are on their crucial mission, exchanging valuable timber and pelts for Eastern gold. It's like an episode of Trading Spaces, except there's no home renovation, just a lot of sweaty deals and a few accidental missteps into a cactus patch. As you amble along with them, you can almost hear the sound of coins clinking, mingling with the squawking of merchants like a medieval version of a jazz band gone rogue. Ah, yes, the gold, so shiny it practically winks at you, as though it's saying, "You should have brought your sunglasses along for this ride, pal." Now, let's take a moment to explore the sentiment swirling among the merchants. Ever wondered what it feels like to barter your life savings? Peasants in Europe were perpetually questioning, did I just trade my entire sheep herd for a bag of glittery rocks? It's like when you try to convince yourself that spending your last $10 on an overpriced avocado is somehow an investment in health. Spoiler, it's not the same. As you walk with the caravan, every step in the sun brings a fresh layer of chaos. The din of distant camels cavorting resonates through the air, a bit like that one friend who brings live music to your quiet dinner parties. A joke among the merchants. Why was the camel jealous of the horse? Because he could always bet his carriage when the markets got rough. The laughter that follows is contagious, making you wonder whether these folks were traders or an impromptu stand-up troupe. Can you smell that? It's the rich, warm scent of spices from the east, mixing with the earthy tones of the surrounding landscape. Nothing brings a sense of home like the aroma of cardamom and cumin, right? Except, of course, for the slight undertone of something suspicious, like a merchant who forgot to change his tunic before stepping out into the sun. Let's just say you could track the route of this caravan with your nose alone. Now, let's dive into the physical toll these journeys must have taken on the merchants. Imagine if you had to lug around sacks of furs, timber, and an inexplicably large amount of gold through terrain resembling a giant sandbox. It's the original extreme sport. Medieval Sisyphus meets the farmer's market. You'd think they'd get knee pads or something, but no, just layers of wool and a hopeful attitude. Each evening, the caravan sets up camp under the rapidly dimming glow of the sun. Picture it.
tired merchants sprawling out next to their valuable wares, furs for warmth and gold for bargaining. Fires crackle nearby, with the scent of roasted meats wafting tantalizingly
Through the air, like a siren call unanswered by those munching on dry bread. You may find yourself daydreaming about diving headfirst into a pile of livestock to escape the monotony of gaunt conversations around the campfire. Did you hear about Gerald? He tried to trade a sack of berries for a cow. As night descends, stories fill the air, tales of distant lands brimming with mischief and wonder. One merchant waxes lyrical. There was a time I halted for a drink at a tavern, and the tavern keeper filled my cup with a concoction so terrible that carrion crows wouldn't touch it. How's that for medieval advertising? Come one, come all, drink the ale that even the crows avoid. It's sure to clear your sinuses. But let's not ignore the awkwardness of these merchants at a crossroads. Have you ever tried to make small talk with a stranger while your mind screamed, "Don't mention the last time you lost a deal"? Cozy campfires become arenas of social tension, with merchants rather deftly navigating the minefield of awkward compliments. Your fur is interesting. Where did you score that? From a rabid raccoon? And amidst all this merriment and discomfort, the question looms, what happens when they finally reach their destination? As they plod along with legs that could rival those of a marathon runner, they think of the gold waiting at the end of this exhausting journey. Though, let's be real, by the time they get there, they might just hand over their furs and timber for a decent cup of brew instead. As dawn creeps on the horizon, you can't help but wonder, is there a medieval equivalent of a happy hour? Perhaps a gathering of souls exchanging stories over a mead so sweet it could rival a candy shop on Halloween. But one thing's for certain, the sound of jingling gold is mere music to their ears, a siren's call of opportunity echoing through the valleys. And as the caravan continues its trek, you can almost hear the collective sigh of relief. Those woolen tunics may be itchy, and the road might be as bumpy as a poorly crafted pallet, but with each step you're closer to that glint of gold, that shiny indicator of wealth that somehow makes all the hardships worth it. With a final thought, as you slip into a dreamy slumber, remember that behind every sack of goods and beneath every clink of coins lies an absurdly woven tale, spun through time and space, and you, dear traveler, are a part of it all. So, close your eyes, drift away from the absurdity, and let the shimmering gold carry you into a blissful night's sleep, as you await the next leg of your historical hilarity. Chapter 21. The Peasant's Dilemma. Labor for love or rent? Hey guys, welcome back to the realm of eternal awkwardness, where tonight we dive deep into something more uncomfortable than that one medium you accidentally ordered at your local pizza joint. The life of a medieval peasant. Imagine for a moment a time when coin was as rare as a compliment from your mother-in-law, and negotiating rent felt a bit like bartering your dignity. Let's take a stroll down ye old dusty lane of history and find out just how hilariously miserable life was for our favorite hard-working folk. Now, before we really get into it, don't forget to like,
subscribe, and comment if you enjoy this sort of historical whimsy, but only if you genuinely do, not just out of pity. Like they say, if you can't summon genuine joy, at least summon the courage to laugh at medieval misfortunes. So, picture this. You've just woken up in 650 AD, and immediately you're hit by a wave of unpleasant realizations. The smell of damp earth is basically your new perfume. Congratulations! And what's that? Oh, right, it's your feudal lord, who's as charming as a rogue goat and twice as demanding. No cash? No problem, he says with a smile that screams, "You'll work until your hands resemble a shovel." What's your payment method, you ask? Well, it's a lovely system called labor for rent. That's right. Instead of coins, imagine handing over a couple days of manual labor, because nothing says, "Welcome to the future," like being stuck in a medieval version of a really bad job fair. Ever thought about offering 2 days of back-breaking work just for some shoddy accommodation? Kind of puts that side gig you're doing on Uber Eats to shame, huh? Let's talk about the scene that unfolds in front of you. You see peasants trudging up to the Lord's castle, sweat glistening on their foreheads like they're training for a summer marathon. Except they're just going to get yelled at by a guy in a fancy tunic who treats them like the dirt beneath his feet. And speaking of dirt, have you ever resembled a sweaty sack of potatoes while trying to negotiate your way out of chores? Just think about it. Yes, kind sir, would you accept my splendid ability to ferment cabbages in exchange for my rent? The reality is that when the peasant walks into the Lord's domain, it's kind of like entering a very unwelcoming theme park where the main attraction is endless manual labor. You can almost hear the Lord's voice echoing through the air like a broken record. You're late with your labor payments, as if he were some sort of medieval DJ spinning despair instead of tunes. But let's set the stage. The Lord, perched on his throne, looks like someone who fancied himself mighty because his plate was always overflowing with roast meats, while the peasant is there, clutching an empty stomach and dreams only slightly less dashed than a broken cartwheel.
"You owe me 2 more days of work," he proclaims, waving his arm dramatically like he's orchestrating a symphony of despair.
What do you do? How does one negotiate when their only wealth is the sheer power of their blisters? Most peasants were left to barter their labor in a desperate attempt to secure a spot on the Lord's good side. Picture the bustling scene, a lot of grumbling and perhaps the occasional, "Let's haggle," turned into a brief physical comedy act where one wrong move sends someone tumbling into a particularly stubborn mud puddle. Who doesn't want to see a Lord's servant done up in nature's finest decor? Fashion tip: mud is the new black. Every hour of toil feels longer than the last season of your favorite show streaming on repeat. You can almost hear medieval folks complaining, "Why is this so much harder than porridge making?" Laboring in fields under the broiling sun, pulling weeds requires more dedication than maintaining a thriving Instagram account, but their persistence was vital for survival. You'd think they were trying to outcompete the local breakfast cereal companies for that sweet, sweet grain. But alas, the constant struggle comes with silver linings, like learning the knack of making friends with every member of the livestock community. "Hey, Bessie, how are your utterly delicious milk secrets coming along? Any chance you'd swap a good gossip for a day's labor? Yes, the only relationships more complicated than feudal contracts were the ones with barnyard animals. And then there's your dear neighbor, who has just returned from a little too much fun in the fields. "You won't believe this," he exclaims, looking exhausted. "I just offered 3 days' worth of mucking out the stables for 1 loaf of bread." Sure, it sounds appealing, but let's be honest. Everyone's got that one friend who takes their bartering game a little too seriously. "You mean you paid 3 days for this? I just got a night's sleep in exchange for a whole flock's worth of wool." Now, here's where the absurdity really sets in. After your grueling labor shift, just when you thought you could catch a breather, the Lord's minion shows up, demanding more. It's like being in an endless loop of chores, but without the comfort of binge-watching your favorite shows at the end of the day. Work, eat, sleep, repeat, with the occasional existential crisis to keep things spicy. As the long days stretch on and back pain becomes a familiar companion, you start to wonder if being a peasant in medieval Europe might just be a cosmic experiment in patience and endurance. Did I really trade my dignity for a piece of bread? Could any experience truly be that funny? And remember, folks, grimness aside, behind every laborious day lived is an oddly amusing tale unfolding, a testament to human resilience, or perhaps just humanity's ability to laugh through the madness of medieval life. After all, isn't humor the best currency of all, even for those too busy to count? So take a deep breath, my friends, as you contemplate a world where trial by labor is the norm. Perhaps it might just be time to drift into slumber with dreams of playing the feudal lord oneself, or at least convincing the neighbor to share that loaf of bread. Sleep tight, dear peasant, dear pet. Chapter 22. The Silver Shadow. Coins and Chaos in Medieval Times. Hey guys, welcome back to the Historical Comedy Club, where tonight's feature presentation is brighter than a jester's pants on a feast day. We're diving into the mesmerizing, slippery world of currency, that shiny, jangly stuff that rules our lives even now. Just ask your wallet. Yep, you guessed it. Tonight, we're talking about why gold vanished during the medieval economic crisis. Spoiler alert, it's more complex than trying to explain TikTok to your grandparents. Now, before we tumble deeper into this glittering rabbit hole, remember to like, subscribe, and comment if you find yourselves chuckling like a court bard enjoying a particularly juicy joke. But honestly, only if you actually enjoy this nonsense. No phony compliments here, please. So, my fellow time travelers, dim the lights, put on your favorite fan. No, not the one that gets up in your business at church. And let's get cozy as we drift through the chaotic roller coaster of European finances, where money was about as fickle as a short-tempered goat. Picture yourself, if you dare, in the year 650 AD. You've just woken up in a world where coins are as rare as a clean shirt in a pigsty, and the only thing heavier than your expectations is the amount of dust in your home. Imagine this. You step outside into a land where everyone dreams of a unifying currency while clutching their last few coins like they're solid gold. But it's mostly just rusty iron with questionable motives. What's that sound? Oh, just the melodious tunes of merchants bickering over the worth of fresh cabbages versus old socks. Ever tried convincing a peasant to trade a fledgling chicken for a handful of coins that might as well be made of chocolate? Talk about a tough market. But here's the kicker. Let's say you manage to score one of those shiny silver coins. Side note, it's practically a miracle if the merchant doesn't just offer you some half-eaten turnips instead. You'd hold that coin high, admiring how its reflection dances off the sunlight like a wannabe disco ball. Congratulations! You've entered the ultimate medieval currency game, where every coin casts a long shadow over your neighbors. And I do mean that literally. You might just start thinking you own their goat, too. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate the good old coin toss. In medieval times, flipping a coin held more importance than deciding what's for dinner. You could determine whether to sow oats or skip straight to "let us wrap your debts away." It's as if the universe itself had decided to make budgeting a game of chance. Heads, I buy. Tails, I cry. A real nail-biter, akin to balancing your checkbook while riding a unicycle, without training wheels. But wait, what happens when your silver coin's shadow starts to loom large? Suddenly, every merchant in the market begins to feel an existential crisis. Am I really
Getting the best deal here? Or am I merely swapping potatoes for a slightly shinier potato? They start scrambling around like chickens with their heads cut off, all in a mad pursuit of something shinier than their last best-laid plan: gold. Now, enter our charming friend. Let's call him Lord Featherton McWealthy. I mean, who doesn't love a good old-fashioned lord with an amusingly pompous name? He's snuggled up in his castle, munching on roasted pheasant, while eyeing piles of gold coins like a kid in a candy store. All the while, the peasants down below are scratching their heads, sending smoke signals back and forth, while wondering how on earth they can even afford that pheasant's feather. It feels like every time the merchants open their cloaks, they're hiding whatever gold they had under their tunics. Lord Featherton is ready to throw a royal tantrum, probably while adopting a noble pout that rivals any distraught teenager. "Where is the gold?" he bellows, keenly aware that his precious wealth isn't as stable as he wished. Peasants are struggling to keep up with their feudal taxes, and it's clear the economic crisis is upon us. The gold is vanishing faster than your breakfast on a Monday morning, and nobody seems to know where it went. Ever lose a sock in the laundry? Right now, imagine that, but multiplied by an entire kingdom. Picture the scene. Villagers huddle around the tavern, sipping sour ale while discussing the latest rumors about gold thefts. Was it a band of rascally brigands, or did the coins just get lost crossing the cobblestone streets? They quietly laugh their worries away, swapping tales of coins that have simply, mysteriously, vanished into thin air. Did you hear about old Birdie? He traded a gold coin for a cat, and now that cat's gone too. Coin for a cat? What was he thinking? In the midst of all this chaos, gold appears more like a myth, comparable to a unicorn sighting or discovering a four-leaf clover amidst haystacks of financial insecurity. The shadows of those shimmering coins loom larger, threatening to consume not just the market,
but also the very dreams of every hard-working peasant, leaving them with nothing but the sweet aroma of desperation wafting through the air. And so, my friends, we see how it all spiraled, how the seeds of chaos were sown amidst whispers of unification, and the desperate hunt for a single, stable currency to bind them all. What once shone bright as our ideal financial structure slowly twisted into a shadowy figure of confusion, more perplexing than trying to explain why your neighbor's chicken keeps laying square eggs. Rest assured, the medieval world holds lessons in humility and humor, ourselves trading in laughter while juggling our own modern crises, be they financial or existential. So, take a deep breath, my fellow medieval tour guides, and drift serenely into slumber, dreaming of your future gold coins. May they not vanish as easily as our
Dreams of a 3-day weekend. Chapter 23. The Reopening of Shadows, the Silver Mine of Saxony. Let's talk about reopening, a thrilling adventure akin to attempting to binge-watch a series after a year-long break. It's equal parts anticipation and fear, especially when that series involves deep, dark silver mines, where the only thing more claustrophobic than the space is the air you're breathing. Today, dear dreamers, we embark on a significant yet amusing journey to a gloomy little corner of Saxony, where not only did miners hope to rediscover silver, but they were also likely wondering if lunch would be anything other than moldy bread. You find yourself right outside the illustrious silver mine, just reopened, like an old Hollywood blockbuster, but with a bit more dirt and fewer explosions. The sun reluctantly peeks over the horizon, casting an orange glow that makes everything feel dusty and hopeful. Picture yourself standing in front of a gaping mouth of darkness, wondering if the legends you heard around the tavern are true. Will it yield riches like a fairy tale? Or are you about to trade your sense of smell for a whiff of damp earth and regret? In the distance, you can hear the muffled sounds of workers sorting tools and nervously clearing their throats, because apparently, telling a cave that you're coming to mine for shiny rocks requires a proper introduction. The clattering of picks and shovels reverberates through the air, a symphony of anxious anticipation mixed with a dash of suspicion. After all, you wouldn't want to accidentally wake whatever slumbering creature is rumored to live below the surface, especially when it might harbor dinner plans that don't include you. Can you smell that? No, not the fresh mountain breeze. It's more like a blend of damp earth, perspiration, and the lingering scent of, "What on earth did I step in?" reminiscent of a bad day at the livestock auction. Just as your nose begins to curl in indignant protest, a whiff of something oddly toothsome wafts past. The cafeteria special of the day apparently involves a hearty stew made from, well, let's not ask too many questions. As workers gather, they exchange stories about the mine's infamous last closure. The grim legend includes disappearing miners, shadowy figures, and possibly a very confused goat that wandered deep into the caverns and hasn't been seen since. Last time we were down there, one miner says, tilting his head in dramatic fashion, I almost found the end of the world, or maybe just a really bad batch of mushrooms. Either way, I'm not going back without a helpline. Before plunging into the belly of the beast, have you considered what life is like for the miners? Do they get snack breaks? Do they argue about whose turn it is to retrieve the cobweb-covered lantern? In modern terms, it's like preparing for a corporate retreat,
Except this time, the team-building exercise involves avoiding cave-ins instead of trust falls. One miner, wearing a helmet that looks suspiciously like it's been a few decades overdue for an update, tries to sound brave while sharing the legend of the Whispering Shadows. Sounds ominous, huh? It's the medieval equivalent of workplace horror stories, complete with late-night adventures gone horribly wrong. As the crew scuttles inside, a wave of cold air sweeps through, reminiscent of an old refrigerator. And hey, while we're at it, how about a round of applause for the ingenious cave designers of yore? Because nothing says, "Let's get rich," like navigating a labyrinthine dirt-clad structure where every dark corner whispers sweet nothings of doom. You pretend not to step over the occasional rock that could very well be someone's lunch from last week. Once inside, the pit's damp walls glisten like they're about to impart some sage advice, like a parental figure who's seen it all. But beneath the surface of all that glistening, there's also a sense of desperation, of hope, really. This mine, once upon a time, held the promise of wealth. It didn't just produce silver. It was the lifeblood of dreams and ambitions for the local populace, transforming potatoes into potential pastries and worn tunics into something resembling status. Oh, but remember the risks, friends. Imagine descending deeper into a world where the air is as thick as molasses, where the glint of silver is sometimes just that dusty old rust on your brother's sword. Ever attempted to discover hidden treasures in your attic, only to uncover an old sock collection? It's downright dangerous. You might get lost, or worse, trapped in a storage unit filled with sentimentality. Every clinking sound echoes ominously, the workers squinting into the shadows, half expecting to see a troop of anxious squirrels handling the torchlighting arrangements. "Did you really think this was just a mining operation, Sam?" a miner groans. "I've heard they're tightening up security, what with the whole resurgence of silver vibe, and a few of us might end up rumored to be bandits just because we can't find the light switch." And thus, the reopening of the mine becomes not just about the lustrous silver, but a quest wrapped in the rich textures of absurdity, dreams, and midweek doubts. Picture troubadours serenading about a brave band of miners looking for more than silver, like a decent meal, a nap, or just someone who cleans up the vague aroma of past disasters. So, my friends, as the shadows deepen and the workday reveals its labyrinth of chaotic thrill, we rest assured, knowing that the spirit of adventure consumes us, making even the dullest of pursuits spark into something brilliant. Just like attempting to explain life's complexities to your cat on a rainy day, where every misstep becomes an exercise in laughter. With dreams of silver glimmering in the back of your mind, let yourself drift into slumber. May your dreams be as vibrant as the ores beneath the ground, and may tomorrow be as brilliantly absurd as returning to find those shiny riches tucked safely within the depths of this unforgiving world.
Chapter 24.
Lords of land and frequent messes of misery? Let's talk about power, specifically the sort of power that doesn't come from wealth in shiny gold coins, but from an abundant supply of muddy land and the very human ability to tell others what to do. Welcome to the merry era of feudal lords, where the real estate market was a wild ride and land was king. Today you find yourself in a realm where the only thing more inflated than the sense of superiority of many nobles is the number of peasants getting ready to dig more potatoes. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 650 AD, surrounded by the picturesque yet rather chaotic landscape of the early Middle Ages, where horse savers are likely more reliable than accountants, and each day is one thrilling will they or won't they drama about the weather. You may be wondering, have you inadvertently joined an episode of House Hunters, Feudal Edition? And why does everyone seem more concerned about the condition of their horse than the contents of their pantry? As you step out of your makeshift dwelling, a modest affair that can best be described as a combination of minimalism gone awry and, let's not mince words, a goat's worst nightmare, you can almost hear the distant hum of feudal life. It's the soundtrack of booming voices, clanging tools, and, let's be honest, occasional yelps of frustration. Definitely not the serene symphony of nature you may have been hoping for. What's that smell? Ah, yes, the delightful aroma of wet earth mixed with the sweet undertones of livestock. If you close your eyes and inhale deeply, you can practically taste the glory of yesterday's dinner wafting up from under your neighbor's floorboards. It's a sensation reminiscent of the best vintage from a charred tin cup, if you've ever had the misfortune to sip from one. Remember, socializing in the early Middle Ages was a bit like staring into the abyss, pleasurable for a fleeting moment, but filled with the living embodiment of your last meal. Feudal lords were rather like the social media influencers of the time, only instead of trendy jumpsuits, their power came from having more land than your neighbor. If the medieval Instagram was a thing, every lord would have been posting pictures of their finest farmland, complete with a dramatic filtering effect to make the mud look less muddy. They ruled with an iron fist, or more accurately, an off-brand auto pen, ensuring that peasants paid their dues, which mostly consisted of giving up their hopes of a leisurely afternoon in exchange for digging yet another hole in the ground. Have you ever considered the intriguing idea that these lords saw themselves as not merely overlords of land, but masters of questionable life choices? Every castle towered over the nearby village like a looming giant, people saying, "Look, there goes Lord Grumblepot of the tottering castle. I hear he had to chase his own horse out of a bog last week." What? An ordeal? In our modern world, that's pretty much the equivalent of seeing your neighbor's car stall at the worst time possible and thinking, that could have been me. Now let's talk about the peasants. Oh, blessed be their dirt-smeared faces, struggling valiantly in the hot sun while sweating more than a lord's underling during tax season. These men and women toiled from dawn till dusk, earth always stubbornly clinging to their fingers, not unlike an overly affectionate cat. Slumped over in the fields, they wrestled with the combination of dirt, weeds, and the existential dread of whether today would bring a decent meal or one more terrifying turnip substitute. And the lords? Oh goodness, they were too busy choosing which opulent brocade to wear, while feasting on dishes that practically begged to be Instagrammed. Ever watched someone snack on a roasted leg of lamb while feigning concern over a minor peasant rebellion? It's the original multitasking feat. Between morsels of mutton, they'd sum up that day's confusion about the fluctuating nature of loyalty. Is it just me, or do these fellows seem angrier every time I raise their taxes? Let's not forget about the deceptively delightful idea of land ownership. Think of it as entering a shady partnership where the only payoff is a constant return of grief. It's like buying a haunted house and ending up with more ghosts than expected. The deal came with a generous helping of obligations, eager hands turning fields of grain while dreaming of luxurious beds and some peace in between weed-whacking marathons. Imagine showing up on a Monday to discover that your life now revolves around appeasing a cranky lord more interested in his trophies than his tenants. Spoiler alert, it does not end well. You could say it was a brilliant social structure, one where everyone was trying to stay afloat in the mud whirlpool of duties. Peasants prayed for rain, while the lords prayed it wouldn't ruin their shoes. It's like a poorly chosen game of tug-of-war, only instead of applause, you're greeted with suspicious glares and an uncomfortable silence post every score. As you find yourself surrounded by this ensemble of historical absurdities, the feudal lords, the dusty peasants, and all the haggling over, well, potatoes, take a moment to appreciate this splendid mix of land and chaos that makes the era uniquely cozy in its own wildly uncomfortable way. The next time you complain about the price of avocado toast, just think of the peasant who had to barter their sole chicken for a handful of seeds. Your soothing dreams may now drift toward tales of power, responsibility, and a great deal of mud. May your slumber be accompanied by whispers of medieval laughter, reminiscent of a more comfortable life that, believe it or not, is always just around the next hill, or perhaps the next broken shovel.
Chapter 25. The Hidden Hoard of Economic Strife. Tonight we delve into something more confusing than your last attempt to assemble IKEA furniture. The curious case of medieval economic crises. You might wonder, why did gold seem to vanish from the pockets of those supposed lords who were swimming in all that land? Spoiler alert, it's a lot messier and dirtier than it sounds. But first, let's set the scene. Imagine waking up one day to discover that your savings account has disappeared. Poof! Like last night's pizza in the hands of your hungry roommates. Welcome to the early Middle Ages. You've just entered a world where money could mean anything, from shiny gold coins to dented tin cans, and where wealth often resembled an awkward game of Monopoly that got thrown out the window during a particularly intense family argument. As you wake up in 650 AD, you find yourself not in a palatial castle, but rather nestled beside a broken clay pot, a luxurious housing arrangement that would make even the humblest of peasants question their life choices. The pottery, a marvel in its own right, cradles the remnants of what could arguably be the most unfortunate currency ever, a collection of fragmented silver coins that have seen better days, like your favorite shirt after a wash gone terribly wrong. If you squint at these remnants, perhaps the most fitting description is debased. Oh yes, they're not just broken, they're flimsier than a flimsy excuse. And let's take a moment to appreciate the audacity of these coins surviving in your pot. It's like finding a family heirloom, only to realize it's actually just a half-eaten donut in a Ziploc bag o' remembrance. And yet, here lies a pot filled with coins representing not just currency, but also a confounding connection to monetary insecurity and the chaos of hoarding. People were collecting these shiny, but let's be honest, really worn out, pieces of metal as if they were Pokémon cards, but instead of trading them for the latest Charizard,
They were hiding them away like a squirrel holding on to its last acorn, just in case winter showed up uninvited. Let's pause for a moment and consider. How many times have you tucked away a $20 bill in an old jacket pocket, only to find it come laundry day and think, "Ah, sweet surprise." Now, imagine if that $20 was a series of coins, shiny yet chipped, not unlike old pizza bites that managed to appear mysteriously in your freezer. You weren't exactly sure how they got there, but hey, surprise snack. So, why silver, you ask? What was wrong with a bit of gold? Gold, my dear friends, was all fine and dandy until everyone realized they needed actual items more than they needed a hefty metal. You might say it was like attending a party where the theme is "Bring your own snacks," and everyone arrives with bags of gold, but no food. Thus, desperate times called for desperate measures. People peeked into their clay pots and watched in horror as their fortunes dwindled to the silt at the bottom of their economic reality check-filled bowls. Now, let me set you up with a visual. Picture a vibrant village marketplace. The stalls are bustling with merchants shouting, "Get your fresh vegetables, warm bread, and, oh yes, our delightful offerings of slightly disappointing bread." It's like your neighborhood supermarket, only the checkout line smells suspiciously of livestock, and everybody seems to barter like they're competing for an Olympic medal in trading the last piece of cheese. But what fuels this atmosphere of relentless bartering? A nagging thought, that hidden hoard in the broken pottery is frantically whispering in every villager's ear. What if gold doesn't come back? What if, during the next feast, I run out of silver and must pay in turnips? Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to fork over your beloved, albeit somewhat wilted, turnip in exchange for a loaf of bread? It's an exchange that begs the question, why didn't anyone just consider a potluck? The very act of hoarding became synonymous with security, much like how you might keep non-perishable snacks hidden in your cabinet today, just in case there's a meteor shower or, heaven forbid, you run out of popcorn during the next Netflix binge session. Hoarding in the medieval age wasn't just about gathering coins. It was about keeping a finger on the pulse of your precarious equities and hoping your neighbors weren't about to discover your secret cache of the good stuff. As silver coins crumbled in those beloved clay pots, what bubbled to the surface was distrust. It's like that moment when your friend shows up late to brunch, and suddenly you're suspicious there might not be enough avocado toast left. What are they hiding, you wonder, while checking behind someone's shoulder, half expecting them to be hoarding all the good things, while you contemplate a life filled with mundane scrambled eggs. So, as you cozy up to your dreams of hidden treasures and the great economic crises that rattled Europe, let the thought of broken coins and hidden hoards lull you into slumber.
Because, in the end, even during the craziest of economic crises, the search for hope and toast, be it avocado or otherwise, remains alive and well, cheekily taking up space in our dreams like that dusty pot of coins. May your dreams be filled with feasting, rickety clay pots, and the joys of hoarding oddball coins, all crumbling together into a delightfully satisfying heap of absurdity. Sleep tight, you hidden hoarders of modernity.
As our quiet journey through medieval Europe slowly comes to an end, it's worth pausing to reflect on what daily life truly demanded of the people we met tonight. Their world was cold, muddy, unpredictable, and often faintly ridiculous. Survival meant long hours of labor, constant negotiation, and an impressive tolerance for bad smells, broken tools, and coins that looked more like pancakes than money. And yet, somehow, they carried on. They worried about harvests, argued over goats, mistrusted misshapen silver, and endured economic confusion with a mixture of stubborn resilience and accidental comedy. Even when gold vanished and systems failed, people adapted, bartering grain, improvising value, laughing at bad deals, and waking up the next morning to try again. Their strength wasn't glamorous, but it was real. It lived in the mundane rhythm of survival, where humor often softened the edge of hardship. And now, here you are, safe, warm, and resting in a world they could hardly imagine. Clean water flows easily. Money mostly behaves itself. Your bed doesn't smell like damp straw. These small comforts are quiet miracles built on centuries of trial, error, and resilience, just like theirs. It's okay to feel grateful for that tonight. So let the clatter of medieval markets fade. Let the goats wander off. Let the silver coins stop clinking in your thoughts. You don't need to solve history's problems anymore. Not tonight. The lessons have been learned, the stories told, and the past can rest where it belongs. Breathe slowly. Let your shoulders soften. Let sleep arrive gently, like a candle finally flickering out in a quiet stone room. Sleep well, traveler. You've earned your rest.